Chapter 925. The two of them hurried back to the Qiao residence and specially went to their mother's beautiful view court to take a look. Although Wei Ziqin's face was a bit pale, she was generally fine. Now that they asked her, she actually didn't know what had happened at all. Seeing her tired expression, Arbor didn't want to say anything more to her. After exhorting Xia in a few words, she left the room with the crown prince. Qiao Zhongbang followed the two of them out and anxiously asked, "What the hell is going on? Why would Ding Tingding suddenly leave your mother in Qingshui Jiayuan's palace made room for no reason? I heard that room had been empty for a long time. If little Mo hadn't sent people to search it up and down, I'm afraid that your mother wouldn't have been found unconscious there for 4, 5, 6, or 7 days." At the mention of this matter, Arbor's face was filled with anger. She clenched her fists tightly. "Father, it's my fault this time. I didn't take that matter to heart. I implicated Mother." From beginning to end, Arbor didn't take the matter of Ding Tingding coming to steal her as a big deal. In the end, he harmed Mother for no reason. Simply preposterous. That senseless person. I wonder if he's dead now. Mo Lian held Arbor's hand and sent her to the entrance of Nanzhu Garden. She softly said, "Xiao Yi led people to search the lower reaches of the river, but didn't find any trace of Ding Tingding. I think he might have escaped. Damn stinky man." A trace of ruthlessness flitted through Arbor's eyes. "Do you know who he is? That day, we met that woman in the underground village, the Snake Beauty. Do you still remember? She's Ding Tingding." Mo Lian couldn't help but come to a realization. Did he grasp some special ability? Can he change his figure and face at will? This was much more brilliant than any disguise technique. No matter how many transformations there were, how could you turn a man into a woman, or an adult into a child? Even his voice could become no different from Wei Ziqin's. His special ability is really very special. He can change the human body's bones, internal organs, and even meridians at will. So even though her knife seemed to have pierced his heart, it was possible that he had already moved his vital organs at the critical moment. Arbor frowned, feeling a little regretful. If this person was not dealt with, he would become a huge problem in the future. If he were to hide himself, where would they find such an ever-changing person in the vast sea of people? Mo Lian held Arbor's hand tightly. "Jojo, could it be that the underground organization has their eyes on you? Otherwise, why would Ding Tingding want to get close to his Jojo again and again?" Arbor sneered, "If they dare to come, I'll kill them. I'll make it so that they won't be able to leave." Even he had no clue about the underground village for the time being. Previously, he had asked the various fortifications to pay close attention to the empty villages nearby to see if there were any changes, but in the end, they had not found anything. He didn't know if it was because he had cleared out the Snake Beauty's underground village last time, but these people might have become vigilant and started to lay low. "Alright, don't think so much. You should also go back to sleep early." Arbor tugged at his hand and said softly. A good lantern festival was completely ruined by that senseless person. Arbor felt a little suffocated in his heart. After sending Mo Lian off, he washed up a little and lay down on the bed. After the third night watch, Arbor opened his bright eyes. His body moved, and he flipped over and sat up. With a flick of his fingertips, an invisibility talisman automatically split open without any wind. Chapter 926. Arbor's figure instantly disappeared into the night. He swept out of the Qiao residence and headed straight for the Imperial Palace. A good show was put on in Chonghua Palace that night. Because Xingru was a newcomer and a favored consort in the past, she had always put on airs and acted high and mighty wherever she went. Now that she was in trouble, there were plenty of people rushing to step on her a few more times. Noble Consort Lin, who had always been at odds with her and was also the third Prince Mo Ting's mother, specially gave a few words of advice to the head steward of Chonghua Palace. The head steward immediately understood tacitly. On Zhenru's first day in Chonghua Palace, she hadn't even been in the cold palace for an hour when she was fiercely taught a lesson by a bunch of old consorts in the cold palace. Afterwards, she was thrown into the most remote woodshed on the west side. They glorified it by saying that they were giving a has-been noble consort the best treatment of a solitary woodshed. The others all lived in the same courtyard and didn't have the preferential treatment of a has-been noble consort. Although it was small, it was still a private territory, wasn't it? Zhenru was used to being pampered and spoiled, so how could she endure this vicious beating? That night, she developed a high fever from anger. Mammy Su was so anxious that a string of small blisters formed on her mouth. In addition, she had just been beaten by a vicious old mama until her lips were cracked and her entire face was swollen. She and Zhenru both needed a doctor and medicine. However, when she went to Chonghua Palace's steward in the middle of the night to ask for medicine, she was ruthlessly ridiculed by the steward. Her original words were, "Who do you think you are? Are you still that noble consort from Sephora Flower Palace? Are you worthy of me going to the Imperial Physician Building overnight to invite a doctor with your lowly status? Don't joke around. Hurry up and scram to wherever you live. Otherwise, you can't avoid a good beating." Mammy Su thought of the ruthless methods of that group of old concubines and immediately did not dare to make a fuss. She hurriedly fetched another bucket of water and returned to the woodshed, planning to apply a cold compress on Zhenru to lower the temperature. Who knew that as soon as she opened the door to the woodshed, she would see Zhenru lying on the ground in pain, clutching her stomach as she rolled back and forth. Mammy Su was so frightened that she spilled a bucket of water on the ground. She strode forward to help Zhenru up and repeatedly asked, Xiaoru, Xiaoru, how are you? Xiaoru. Mammy, it's so painful. Mammy, it's so painful. Zhenru grabbed Mammy Su's hand. She was in so much pain that her eyes were filled with tears and her face was pale. Xiaoru. Mammy Su stared at Zhenru's face in shock, only to see that the skin on the side of her chin looked as if it had been burned by fire. It was wrinkled and even had a circle of blisters around it. Zhenru did not notice the changes on her face at all. She only felt that her stomach was churning, as if it was going to burn her to death. It was so painful that she was sweating all over. When Arbor sneaked over, she just so happened to see Zhenru's miserable appearance. Oh, what a coincidence. The beautifying pill's effects finally took effect. Just the added heat poison nether star seed was not as strong as the 6 yang poisonous flower's medicinal properties. If she had obtained the 6 yang poisonous flower earlier and added it to this beautifying pill, would she have needed to wait half a month for it to take effect? Arbor did not have the slightest bit of sympathy in her heart. If not for this Zhenru coming up with such a treacherous scheme to frame her during the day, how could she have pushed the boat with the current and brought her to the cold palace? What was this called? This was called not harming others but harming oneself. She only had herself to blame. Arbor stood outside the window with a cold gaze, silently looking at the master and servant pair shouting and wrangling inside. Chapter 927. A few days ago, she just so happened to learn a particularly interesting talisman. Arbor swiped his hand and took out 3 ebony pieces from his inner world. His lips curled into an icy smile. Rather than having the crown prince do it, why not let her personally dispose of this person? In any case, in the king's heart, she probably already did not have a good impression of her. Adding this incident would only add a thick stroke of vicious and merciless to her reputation of being cruel and ruthless. Young-hee, Young-hee, are you prepared to meet your death? You really got off too easy. I originally wanted to let you have a taste of the pain of the heat poison wrapping around your body. The ebony pieces flashed and abruptly flew into the woodshed, silently hovering in midair. Zhenru shuddered all over. She seemed to have alertly sensed something, and she abruptly turned her head. Wet nurse, she shrieked. Mammy Su hastily turned her head and saw the glistening talisman energy flickering on the ebony pieces. It's a talisman. Mammy Sue cried out in alarm. In that instant, a loud boom was heard, and the entire woodshed turned into shattered pieces of wood. Following an earth-shattering explosion, it shot into the night sky. This time, don't just mention Chonghua Palace. The entire inner court of the palace, or even the entire royal capital, was fiercely alarmed by this sudden explosion. Everyone jumped out of bed, hurriedly put on their clothes and ran out of the house. The senior manager had just sent away the troublesome Mammy Sue not long ago, so she hadn't been sleeping soundly to begin with. This explosion completely blew her mind awake. The light in the small study of the Eastern Palace's side palace was still faintly lit. Mo Lien was still handling some urgent official business. His thoughts were abruptly interrupted by this explosion, and he threw down his brush and stood up. Huifeng. Huifeng jumped in through the window with a whoosh. Your Highness, the sound came from Chonghua Palace. Mo Lien narrowed her eyes slightly. Did Hidden Flower bring people to make a move? Huifeng immediately shook his head. This subordinate is certain that it isn't. That's true. Hidden Flower had clearly told him to find an opportunity to make a move within 3 days. According to Hidden Flower's playful yet cautious personality, he would at least wait until tomorrow night to deal with that troublesome woman. Your Highness. Do you want this subordinate to go investigate the situation? Huifeng hastily asked. No need. Someone will definitely come to report the situation later. The Crown Prince had just finished speaking when the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the walls of the Eastern Palace. Your Highness the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince couldn't help but be startled. He didn't expect the fastest person to be lightning. Why aren't you with Jojo? Not good, Your Highness. Lightning leaped into the Crown Prince's small study, wiping his sweat as he hastily said, Crown Princess ran to Chonghua Palace overnight to settle accounts with Consort Zheng. Exasperated, Huifeng hastily interjected, what did the Crown Princess do? The Crown Princess threw out 3 explosion talismans, and they were especially powerful. All of a sudden, Her Highness Consort Zheng and her room were blasted into the sky. The Crown Prince was startled, but then he laughed heartily and said, good, good, good. As expected of his little emperor darling. Look at how this move immediately alarmed the entire city. Huifeng snuck a glance at the Crown Prince. Seeing how the Crown Prince was laughing, could it be that this matter was worth spreading? Huifeng's mouth twitched as he said, there's no such thing as Consort Zheng. It's merely royal maid Jingru. Chapter 928. Lightning nodded repeatedly. That's right, she tossed Jingru into the sky. At first, he didn't know what was going on. If it weren't for someone deliberately moving the leaves he was hiding in, he probably wouldn't have discovered that the Crown Princess had left in stealth mode in the dark. He and 2 hidden guards had followed the Crown Princess to Chonghua Palace, only to witness such an exciting scene with their own eyes. Thus, he hurriedly ran over to inform the Crown Prince and give him a heads up, lest the Crown Prince didn't know anything and couldn't respond in time. Mo Lien nodded repeatedly as he listened, his gaze gentle as he gazed out the window. Jojo didn't want to make things difficult for him, so he chose to do it himself first. This child's gentleness simply made his heart ache. Your Highness, this matter should have already alerted the great king and queen. Mo Lien nodded and quickly walked outside. Let's go take a look. When the old great king of Mo Kingdom received the news and heard that the Crown Prince had already gone to Chonghua Palace to check on the situation, he didn't go. Gong Cheng and stood to the side, wiping the cold sweat from his forehead as he said in a trembling voice, Zhengru and her house were blown into the sky. The scene was pitch black, so we couldn't tell what caused the explosion. Mo Lei sighed. How is she? He didn't expect that something would happen the same night after he issued a decree to send her to the cold palace. The old great king didn't feel good either. After all, she was the person he had doted on for so many years. If she was gone all of a sudden. She's severely injured and only has 1 breath left. Gong Chang-un said in a low voice, but that Mammy Su by her side is miraculously unharmed. Oh. Mo Lei's gaze sharpened as he stared at Gong Chang-un. In the face of imminent disaster, that unruly old servant didn't protect her master immediately. That's not it. Gong Chang-un hurriedly shook his head. It's said that the old servant wears an extremely powerful defensive mystic weapon. A mystic weapon recognizes its master. In the end, it protects its master more. Gong Chang-un said softly. Mo Lei's expression turned cold. What is the background of that Nanny Su? This humble one once saw an extremely powerful mystic energy erupt from her body. She seemed to be a level 12 mystic cultivator. She should be someone that Shuntian Prefecture placed in Ligay Courtyard. The Ligay Courtyard was considered a dance studio used by the Wang family. It was different from ordinary folk dance studios and nurtured high-end talents. Otherwise, the Zheng family would not have arranged for Consort Zheng to enter the Ligay Courtyard to be a little singer and actress. It was because she could get in touch with the great king at Ligay Courtyard that Consort Zheng was willing to go there. The old great king sighed. Send him to the Imperial Physician Building for a good look. She had been with him for so many years. No matter what, she couldn't bear to do it. Have you found out who's behind this matter? Is it? The old king suddenly paused halfway through his words. How could Gong Chang-un dare to answer? He had been with the great king for so many years, so how could he not know what the great king was thinking? The great king wanted to ask if His Highness the Crown Prince had hired someone to do it. After all, His Highness looked like he wanted to immediately execute Zheng Ru. Sigh, forget it. The old great king waved his hand and said, don't continue investigating. If the investigation really led to his son, could it be that he would behead his precious son for a consort? Therefore, there was no point in investigating. Chapter 929. By the time Empress Xiao received the news, Zheng Ru had already been sent to the Imperial Physician Building for overnight treatment. She couldn't help but sneer. The great king still can't let go of his consort Zheng after all. Your Highness, you don't need to feel uncomfortable, old Huaxian Xian said softly. Old Nanny Huaxian said softly, Zheng Ru is already a thing of the past. She can never rise again. Who knows? If she manages to pull through this time. Pull through. Old Huaxian Xian laughed. Your Highness, you don't know. It's said that Zheng Ru's face was completely destroyed by the force of the explosion. Is that so? Empress Xiao was slightly shocked, but she asked without batting an eyelid, what did the great king say? The great king's intention is to drop this matter and not continue investigating. Zheng Ru has been released from the cold palace. That's not the case. However, the great king will probably send an imperial physician to follow her back to Chonghua Palace to take care of her. Ha! Empress Xiao sneered. That's right. The great king still cares about his face after all. This person was only released into the cold palace on the day of the Lantern Festival. If he were to release her a day later, he'd probably feel embarrassed too. Old Huaxian Xian thought so too. She nodded and said, that's good. It saves us the trouble of sending people to keep an eye on Zheng Ru. Let our people watch over her for a few more days. Once she's completely settled down, we'll transfer them back. Okay. The Crown Prince. The Crown Prince went to Chonghua Palace and returned to the Eastern Palace after seeing that there was nothing to do with him, old Huaxian Xian said with a twitch of her mouth. Actually, not to mention the great king, even Her Highness probably thought that the Crown Prince had sent people to do this. This child. Empress Xiao shook her head, her eyes filled with affection. The next day. Xiao Mu listlessly crawled out of bed and bounced several times on the ground the moment she got out of bed. Is this a morning temper? A laugh came from outside the window. Arbor ran to the window and opened it. She saw the man in white sitting at the stone table under the flowers and trees. He waved his hand at her lazily. Boom. Arbor hurriedly closed the window and looked down at his disheveled appearance. His little face couldn't help but blush. What was this guy doing here so early in the morning? Miss. His Highness has sent you a sumptuous breakfast. Oh, just leave it there. Arbor found a shirt and put it on. While washing up, he asked Xiao Yao, he came here so early in the morning just to bring me breakfast? That's right. His Highness has been waiting for you for a while now. Xiao Mu tossed the cotton cloth into the water basin and pattered over to open the door. You must have snuck in. He probably didn't go through the front door and didn't alert her parents at all. Yes. Mo Yen nodded seriously. I climbed the wall. Arbor. This guy said it so proudly. What's going on? Jojo, come. Today's breakfast has your favorite flour honey and shrimp cake. He took out a food box covered with a thick cotton cloth. It was still warm when he took it out. How is it? Seeing her take a bite, Mo Yen couldn't help but chuckle. Why did you suddenly think of making breakfast for me? Do I need a reason? I just wanted to make you something delicious. Prince Mo lifted her to his knees and whispered in her ear, Baby, you're the best. Chapter 930. What's so good about me? Arbor said indignantly. I was the one who blasted Jingru into the sky, but in the end, those rumors are still targeting you. She had already heard about it from Lightning. The Great King and Empress Xiao's first suspect was Prince Mo. That was why they didn't continue investigating, because they were afraid that they would find out about their precious son, which would put them in an awkward position. Mo Yen giggled and swayed Jojo as she hugged him. It's okay. I'm happy to take the blame for Jojo. Arbor rolled her eyes at him. Then what was the point of her running over to Zhengru in the middle of the night? Why didn't they think that I was the one who did it? Darling Qiao disagreed and patted her chest. I'm a great talisman master. The 3 explosion talismans I threw at Zhengru were high-level explosion talismans. Otherwise, she wouldn't have blasted Zhengru into the sky. Prince Mo laughed with amusement. Maybe it's because you don't look like a high-level talisman master. Blame her for being too low-key, Arbor thought. Although your father isn't that great. Arbor glanced at Mo Yen and pinched his face. But he's really good to you. For your sake, let's forget about it. She couldn't be bothered to argue with that old fool. Forget it, forget it. She was a magnanimous person and wouldn't bicker with that old fool, the Great King. Mo Yen's heart inexplicably softened. She quietly gazed into Arbor's eyes for a long time before saying softly, Jojo, you don't have to suffer because of me, okay? I'm your husband. Naturally, I have to shelter you from the wind and rain and sweep away all obstacles. Arbor straightened her back and extended a small fist. I'm your wife. I can also shelter you from the wind and rain. Mo Yen couldn't help but laugh out loud. He lowered his head and kissed her soft little face. Wife. Why? Wifey, wifey, wifey. Mo Yen called out several times in a low and seductive voice. This made the little fellow's face turn red. Her heart was jumping up and down. Looking at him was very annoying. Don't come any closer. Arbor saw his curved thin lips close, hurriedly reached out a hand, forcefully covered his mouth. He patted his chest with his other hand, as if he was trying to stabilize his heart. Could he stop flirting with her? She felt that her heart was about to jump out of her chest. How was she going to resolve this? Mo Yen laughed in a deep voice. She bent her elegant and slender neck. A strand of black hair brushed past her eyebrows and lips, tickling them. Hurry up and eat. If you don't eat, the food will get cold. The crown prince pulled down her little hand. Without another word, he picked up a plum blossom-shaped pastry and stuffed it into the little fellow's slightly open mouth. Next time, I want to eat a Sika deer-shaped pastry. Okay. And a bear-shaped one. She purposely made things difficult for him. No problem. Xiao Yao, His Highness' culinary skills would only improve under Mrs. Whipping, right? In front of the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate. A fat lady in her mid-20s walked up the steps of the Qiao estate, her body swaying as she walked up the steps of the Qiao estate. Who are you? The gatekeeper immediately focused his gaze on her and asked vigilantly. Miss Qiao. The fat girl staggered to the entrance of the Qiao estate and fell down without warning, smashing into the main door with a bang. Who exactly are you? Chapter 931. Your internal injuries are a bit serious, so you need to recuperate properly. Arbor sat on the edge of the bed and put down the chubby girl's wrist. Rest well. Xiao Bao. The chubby girl wanted to prop herself up, but she didn't have the strength and fell to the side of the bed. Arbor turned around and looked at her with a complicated expression. Did I cause trouble for you? The plump young lady fidgeted with the hem of her clothes as she stealthily peeked at Mo Yen with shrinking eyes. Mo Yen pursed her lips as her cold gaze paused on the chubby girl's face for a moment before looking away. Even so, the chubby girl still felt cold all over, as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. It's fine, you can rest here and recuperate. We'll go out first. Arbor nodded at her and reached out to take Mo Yen's hand, dragging her out. I don't agree. Mo Yen hadn't gone far when she said in a low voice, You're so smart, so you should know that there's something wrong with this person. How can you leave her behind and put her in danger? Could it be that you really believed that excuse of hers? Mo Yen cast a glance behind him and gazed coldly at the fat young lady's residence. She's called Xiang Yuan. I met her when I went to the Qin estate to apply for a maidservant position. Arbor pointed with two small fingers and looked up at Mo Yen. At that time, none of those maidservants were willing to pay attention to me. Only she would take the initiative to talk to me. Prince Mo looked at this childish little fellow and couldn't help but be speechless. Looking at her somewhat bashful expression, Mo Yen's gaze finally relaxed after a long time. She reached out to pat her little head. Actually, our Jojo really wants to make friends. Humph. I don't have friends. Xiao Mu pridefully turned her head and walked outside. Xiang Yuanyuan said that on the day of the competition, Omega Kotoku had specially arranged for a group of people to kidnap the eldest daughter of the Qiao estate. I know she's lying, or rather, Omega Kotoku is lying, Arbor said calmly. With Omega Kotoku's cultivation, how could he allow an ordinary person to eavesdrop? How could she clearly tell Xiang Yuanyuan that Mu Xiaobao was just an alias and that her real identity was the first miss of the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate? No one would believe that it wasn't intentional. Mo Yen nodded. It's good that you understand. This lie was full of loopholes. Unless young Master Omega Kotoku released Xiang Yuanyuan of his own accord, it was impossible for an ordinary girl like Xiang Yuanyuan to escape from the Qin estate. Knowing the second young master's plan, she could only be a dead person. Right now, I just don't know what Qin Xian wants to do. Arbor frowned and walked out of the guest courtyard where Xiang Yuanyuan was staying. Do you believe that this Xiang Yuanyuan is innocent? Mo Yen's expression was slightly grave. Arbor glanced at him and shook her head. I don't. Then why aren't you throwing her out? Although she's just an ordinary person, who knows, she might be able to give you a fatal blow at a critical moment. Mo Yen paused in the middle of his words. He sighed softly and held her small hand. Perhaps she used to be pretty good, but now, none of us know what she'll do next. I know. Arbor nodded obediently. I'll send her away after treating her injuries. It won't take long, at most 4 to 5 days. I'll send someone to keep an eye on her. If she makes any strange movements, sorry, for your safety, I'll send someone to deal with her. Chapter 932. Arbor looked at him exasperatedly before suddenly running to his side. She raised her small hand and quickly rubbed his taut handsome face. Mo Yen. All right. I'm very smart, so I won't fall into other people's schemes. Arbor said softly, so don't worry, all right. Mo Yen looked at her and nodded helplessly. Let's go, accompany me to Beautiful View Court to visit Mother. Arbor's eyes lit up, and she walked away while holding his hand. Mo Yen couldn't help but smile faintly when he saw her holding hands so naturally. Mo Yen's section break, inside the Talisman patrician Mu family's main hall. Mu Qianqian stood resentfully in front of her father, Mu Boming, and questioned indignantly, Dad, why won't you let me participate in the competition? Could it be that my talisman energy is inferior to second sister Mu Zhilan's? Why does she have the qualifications to participate, but I don't? When Mu Boming's eldest son, Mu Xingyu, saw this, he hastily walked up and said, Qianqian, how can you speak to father with this kind of attitude? Hurry and withdraw. Mu Boming felt more and more uncomfortable as he looked at this good-for-nothing daughter of his. She caused trouble time and time again in the palace, but was humiliated instead. The great king even reminded her that she needed to come back and properly teach her etiquette and norms. This truly made him lose all face. How could Mu Boming, such a prideful person, allow his daughter, this troublemaker, to cause trouble for him every time? The 8 great patrician families' competition this time was related to the allocation of quotas for the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm, so they couldn't tolerate the slightest mistake. Their Mu family had to grab 1 or 2 quotas, and if it was safe, 2 quotas would be the best. You should properly stay at home and learn talisman arts during this period of time. Dad! Mu Qianqian's voice became very shrill. Mu Boming rudely interrupted her. Shut up. Your talisman drawing talent isn't high in the first place. Back then, it was father who thought of many ways to barely help you activate your talisman energy. Tell me, has your talisman energy made any significant progress these past few years? Even Jilan, who entered the sect later than you, is now on par with you in terms of talisman power. They were both beginner talisman masters and skilled talisman masters. Your talisman drawing speed is not even comparable to Jilan's. What you need to do is to thoroughly reflect at home. Mu Boming's words made Mu Qianqian's lungs about to explode from anger. She was her father's biological daughter, yet her father treated the second branch's Mu Zhilan differently. On what basis? Mu Zhilan stood at the side and smiled. She said softly, Uncle, please don't be angry with Sister Qianqian. She will work hard and in the future, she will definitely be able to catch up with Jilan. When Mu Qianqian saw that little white flower's dainty appearance, she got angry all over. After glaring fiercely at Mu Zhilan, Mu Qianqian turned around and left the hall without looking back. I must participate in the competition. It doesn't matter if you give me a spot or not. Mu Boming angrily rebuked, unfilial daughter. Watching his daughter's departing figure, he was so angry that he broke a handrail. But how could Mu Qianqian be delighted? After she returned to her room, she closed the door and furiously smashed it. Suddenly, she turned around to look at a pitch-black figure that had appeared in the corner of the room. Her eyes brightened abruptly before falling silent again. She said with a trace of cold fury, You didn't keep your promise. Master Black Cat chuckled. It's naturally impossible for someone like me to do something as stupid as keeping my promise. Chapter 933. You. Mu Qianqian was so infuriated that the roots of her teeth were itching, but there was nothing she could do. Is it done? I heard that your 8 great patrician families will be holding a martial arts competition in 2 days. Master Black Cat boldly answered Mu Qianqian's question and spoke in a hoarse voice. What do you want? Mu Qianqian asked indifferently. I also want to go and take a look. I wonder if Miss Mu can bring me along at that time. Master Black Cat said with a smile, moreover, I also want to personally witness the effects of this soul swap curse of mine. Mu Qianqian remained silent. Isn't that so? Master Black Cat let out a hoarse laugh. This soul swap curse is something that I nearly spent my entire life to draw. Eldest Miss Mu, I want to personally see you use it. Mu Qianqian couldn't resist asking, how did you know? I want to use the soul swap curse on the days of the competition. Master Black Cat spread his hands. This old man guessed, but I didn't expect that I guessed correctly. This old man was thinking that since you want me to finish crafting this soul swap curse in 7 days, you must be in a hurry to use it. Give it to me. Mu Qianqian stretched out her small hand. Master Black Cat shook his head at her. Eldest Miss Mu, you seem to have forgotten to give me something. Mu Qianqian bit her lip. Recalling their previous transaction, she simply steeled her heart and took out a small square wooden box from her pocket, stuffing it into Master Black Cat's hands with her eyes closed. For you. Master Black Cat finally smiled happily and took the wooden box from her. He opened it to take a look, and a pleasantly surprised expression appeared on his face. Good, good, good. With such a one-of-a-kind summoning talisman, I will definitely be able to copy and research it. Ha ha ha. Mu Qianqian's lips couldn't help but reveal a mocking smile. There are so many people in the talisman patrician families, and some seniors couldn't even figure out this summoning talisman in their entire lives. You? Copy? Heh heh. Master Black Cat pursed his lips in displeasure and harumphed coldly. That's your talisman patrician family. The talisman practitioner's talents are all very ordinary, so how can they be mentioned in the same breath as this old man? Master Black Cat is indeed absolutely confident. Of course. Master Black Cat smiled eerily and abruptly shot out a wooden box of about the same size from its sleeve, flinging it into Mu Qianqian's hand. The soul exchange talisman must be used carefully. You'd better keep in mind what this old man has said before. Don't get yourself into trouble, ha 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 ha. Black Cat Master said with a joyful expression, as if he was watching a good show. However, most of his face was hidden under the pitch-black hood, so Mu Qianqian simply couldn't see it clearly. You can leave now. Mu Qianqian bluntly chased the guest away. Be careful when you go out. It's still daytime right now after all, so you mustn't let anyone see you. Miss Mu, I'll see you on the day of the competition. The Black Cat disappeared from her room in a flash. Leaving behind a series of hoarse and unpleasant laughter, he said, this old man is really looking forward to that day. It's really delightful to be able to see my work play a role with my own eyes. Mu Qianqian tightly gripped the small wooden box in her hand as she coldly enunciated each word. I'm also looking forward to it very much. Achoo! Achoo! Arbor closed a small window in passing and rubbed his nose. He set down the medical book in his hand and called out, Xiao Yao. Why is it so noisy outside? Chapter 934. Mississippi. Xiao Yao walked in a huff and angrily flung the things in her hands to the side. Isn't it that old sixth Qiao and his family again? They're here to make a fuss again. Arbor had been busy recently, so after settling old sixth Qiao and his family in a small residence on Shilua Street, she let them be. After all, each family had their own matters to attend to, and she couldn't possibly take care of everything. What's the fuss about? Arbor asked indifferently, her expression much more distant. 3 days ago, their family came to ask Madam for a large batch of food and cloth. It's enough to last them for at least half a month. I didn't expect them to come again today. How can they have the nerve? Xiao Yao was about to die from anger. I already told them that Madam isn't feeling well today and can't receive guests. But they're still unwilling to let it go and insist on seeing Madam. Isn't that Xiao Ya also a mystic cultivator? How can she not have any ability to live independently? They come here every 2 to 3 days to ask for food and cloth. It's not like our Madam owes them anything. Does it belong to them? Ah. A bunch of blood-sucking fellows. Their hearts are truly rotten to the core. Xiaoyao chattered non-stop, infuriated. Arbor waved at her. All right, look at you. Don't you think it's funny that you're angry to this extent? I'm angry that they're like this. Xiaoyao became angrier the more she spoke. Shouldn't people have self-awareness? How can they always think that Madam treats them well and self-righteously think that it's only right? Our family doesn't lack food or cloth, but we're not saints. Could it be that we have to bless all living things? Shine the light on everyone. It's simply baffling to the extreme. Arbor couldn't help but snicker. This was her first time seeing her Xiaoyao so angry. Look at how angry you are. If my brother Xiaohu sees this, he'll think that I bullied you. Miss. Xiaoyao blushed and rolled her eyes. Why are you still in the mood to joke with Xiaoyao? You can't barge in, you can't. Ah. From the outer courtyard came the cry of a servant girl. Bang! Bang! It was the sound of someone being kicked to the ground. The moment Xiaoyao opened the door, she saw Qiaoye leading the way, leading her parents, old 6th Qiao and old 6th Qiao, towards their room. Xiaoyao was so angry that she pointed a trembling finger at them and said angrily, You. Who gave you the guts to barge into our young Mrs. courtyard? Get out. Qiaoye swatted her hand away. She was already prepared and had already used her profound energy. Xiaoyao was caught off guard and was brought to the side of the door by her force. When she turned around, she saw that Qiaoye had already walked into Mrs. room with a gloomy and cold expression. Men! Do you want to die? Xiaoyao angrily roared. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Lightning and the others' figures immediately landed beside Xiaoyao and looked coldly at 6th Uncle Qiao and 6th Aunt Qiao who were cowering by the side. Arbor, I know a secret of yours. Do you want them all to be present so that I can tell you right now? Qiaoye raised her chin and stared at her with resentment. As if the girl in front of her wasn't her clan sister, but an enemy. Arbor's heart slowly turned cold. I don't have a secret. You do. Qiaoye's voice suddenly rose. Chapter 935. Then say it. Arbor's voice turned cold. Are you sure you want me to say it now? Arbor. Qiaoye had a resolute, you can't take it, expression on her face. This caused Xiao Mu to involuntarily be a bit curious. Heh, what weakness could Xiaoye have on her? She really wanted to know. Don't be ungrateful. Qiaoye shouted angrily. 6th Aunt Qiao hurriedly ran up and held onto her daughter's arm. Crying, she admonished, Xiaoya, don't go crazy. Let's go back quickly. Don't speak to the crown princess like that. What crown princess? She's the crown princess who eats people without spitting out their bones and stepped on us to get to where she is. Qiaoye angrily shook off her mother's arm and looked coldly at Arbor. I'm asking you, after doing such a thing, do you have a conscience? Without waiting for Arbor to get angry, Xiaoyao angrily punched Qiaoye's back. Get the fuck out of here. Putting on a self-righteous face. Who do you think you are? Why would our miss have a conscience? Xiaoyao's profound strength cultivation was definitely above Qiaoye's. With this punch, Qiaoye could forget about speaking. Arbor's small body swayed and grabbed Xiaoyao's fist. Then, he turned to look at Qiaoye. Arbor said indifferently, say it. Although she admitted that she wasn't a good person, she disdained to do those petty things. What secret could Qiaoye have? What a joke. Qiaoye rolled her eyes and revealed a determined expression. Do you really want me to say it here in front of so many people? Say it or not if you don't want to. Arbor impatiently swept a glance at Qiaoye. 6th Aunt Qiao hurriedly hugged Qiaoye's arm. Xiaoya, mother is begging you. Don't make a fuss anymore. Let's go home, go home. I'm not going back. Xiaoya forcefully shook off Sixth Aunt Xiao's hand, pointed at Arbor, and angrily rebuked, "Do you think you can send us away like beggars by giving us a few days' worth of food and a few bolts of cloth? Arbor! You wish. You owe us all of this." Xiao Yao's lungs were about to explode on the spot. She was about to blurt out a curse when Arbor reached out and stopped her. Xiao Yao stole a glance at her Mississippi. At this moment, she really had to admire her Mrs. unchanging face. Paralysis. Face. Yes. She had people pointing at her nose and scolding her, yet she was still able to remain so calm and collected. Sob sob sob, sure enough, the young miss who did not show her emotions was the best. Arbor. I know your secret. Xiaoya's face was right in front of her. Her eyes were staring straight at her like a pair of dead fish eyes. This kind of Xiaoya was very unfamiliar. Arbor's heart was filled with emotions. The big sister Xiaoya who would hold her little hand and give her half a steamed bun to eat was indeed gone. Arbor. You predicted that there would be a zombie outbreak in the village that day, didn't you? Following Xiaoya's angry shout, Arbor's heart instantly sank. She really did not expect that the so-called secret that Xiaoya wanted to expose was actually this. Her rebirth was indeed her life's biggest secret. She did not even tell Mo Lian. As for Xiaoya, it was impossible for her to have such an imagination to connect her to the fact that she was reborn. Slightly stabilizing her emotions, Arbor coldly said, I don't know what you're talking about. Chapter 936. Stop pretending. Xiaoya smiled coldly. Arbor, you started hoarding food at least 10 days in advance. Hoarding cloth. Hoarding all kinds of daily necessities, I wasn't wrong about that, right? Arbor gazed at her coldly, her hands tightly clasped together. Why did you do that? Xiaoya's eyes flickered fiercely as she looked at her. Can't I do it out of my personal hobby? Even Xiao Yao knows that I have a hoarding hobby. Sister Xiaoya has been my neighbor for so many years, so how could you not know? What a joke. What did hoarding in advance mean? It had nothing to do with a zombie outbreak. No, you knew that the zombie outbreak would happen that day. My mother already told me, so don't try to deny it. Xiaoya tilted her head and approached her with an abnormal expression. Do you still remember the 2 horses you sent to our family on the day of the zombie outbreak? Why did you do that? Because you knew that the zombie outbreak was going to happen that day. Because of that, your entire family had already prepared carriages to escape. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Arbor, isn't it? Everyone present looked at Arbor in shock. The Qiao family servants, who were attracted by the angry yell, all shuddered in fear, wishing that they could never enter eldest Mrs. Courtyard. This kind of terrifying secret didn't seem like something they should hear. No. Xiao Yao charged over like an enraged female beast and slapped the chattering Xiaoya to the ground. Our miss has had a hoarding hobby since she was young. She just likes to collect things. Is that not okay? If her mother hadn't let it slip, she wouldn't have known that the 2 horses that helped her family escape from the hellish Quoto village were sent by Arbor. Moreover, from what her mother said, when Arbor sent the horses over, she repeatedly requested for their family to move to Shizhou City together. Every time her mother brought it up, she would say with great regret that she didn't listen to that little girl's words back then and leave with them. Would those things not have happened? Do you know how we survived all these years? Xiaoya angrily glared at Arbor with hatred. When we escaped from Quoto village, I wasn't a mystic cultivator yet. I'm only 12. Our family of 3 are all ordinary people. Under those difficult days, I had no choice. I could only rely on myself and continuously sell my body to make my way to the capital with great difficulty. What's funny is that your mother has the nerve to ask my mother how we got to the capital in the past few years. Ha 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 ha. Xiaoya suddenly jumped up from the ground and threw herself in front of Arbor, wanting to grab her shoulders. Lightning reacted very quickly and pulled out her long sword, blocking her hands. You selfish woman, why didn't you say so back then? We're all from the same village. We are still from the same family. That's how you treat us. If you had told us that such a terrible thing would happen and told us to prepare in advance, would I have become what I am today? Xiaoya couldn't help but scream angrily, the whole village was killed by you, you selfish woman. It's you. It was you who killed them. How cruel of you to do this. You'll be happy seeing the entire village die in the mouths of zombies, right? Arbor, let me tell you, you owe us all of this. Even if you use everything you have now to repay your debt, it won't be enough to repay the sins you committed. Shut up. A deep and angry shout came from the courtyard entrance. Chapter 937. You're wrong. I don't owe anyone anything, including you. Arbor walked over to Prince Mo's side. In fact, since the zombie outbreak in this life, many things had changed from her previous life. The zombie outbreak had also happened earlier than in her previous life. When Arbor left the horse with Sixth Aunt's family, she had thought of persuading Sixth Aunt to leave with them the next day. Who knew that something would happen that night? Of course, with her cold personality, she would not bother to explain so much. Since the ending was already decided, why bother explaining? Jojo. Mo Yen directly held her small hand and turned around to walk into the room. You can just leave it to your subordinates to deal with this kind of discontented person. Xiao Laolu hurriedly knelt down and stammered, Your Highness the Crown Prince, please forgive our Xiaoya. Bang! With a sweep of his sleeve, Mo Yen shut the door to the room on the spot. Arbor's mood was indeed somewhat low. She quickly stole a glance at him and said, You heard everything, didn't you? He pulled her aside the draping curtain and led her to the table. He pressed her to sit on a small stool. Jojo. I did know that the zombie would go berserk, Xiao Mu quickly confessed. I knew. Mo Yen also sat down beside her and looked at her with a smile. Didn't you also remind me to be careful on the way back to the capital? Arbor's expression was slightly startled. Mo Yen, I didn't know that the zombie outbreak would happen earlier. I could have entered the city earlier, so when I escaped that night, although I made sufficient preparations, I was still a bit flustered. Don't you think that I'm very strange? Arbor asked softly. What's strange about it? You're such a little fool. Mo Yen reached out and pulled her into his arms, gently patting her head. You were just a 7-year-old child. It was already good enough that you were able to take care of yourself and your family. No one has the right to demand otherwise from you. Moreover, to him, the common people and the thousands of paths were not as important as his Jojo. He didn't want her to protect anyone else. He only wanted her to protect herself. At your age, if you rashly ran to the villagers and told them about this, they would have been killed. Who knows, he might even be burned as a demon who spouts nonsense. Mo Yen said coldly, so, don't believe Xiaoya's words. You're not wrong. Aren't you going to ask me how I know about the zombie outbreak? Arbor looked at him nervously. Mo Yen shook her head and patted her back. That's not important. Say it when you really want to. But I hope that you won't suppress too many things in your heart. Can you promise me? Arbor nodded lightly, feeling much more relaxed. Let them leave the capital. She understood Prince Mo too well. Don't be fooled by his gentle appearance, he already had murderous intent in his heart. Once Xiaoya's family left the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate, it would be their time to die. If she spouts that so-called secret, Mo Yen didn't want her Jojo to have any more trouble in the future. Arbor raised her little head proudly. They're just a few weaklings. Why would I be afraid of them spilling the secret? Sundara darling. Chapter 938. Mo Yen extended a slender finger and tapped her jade-white forehead, chuckling softly. What a stubborn child. She clearly wanted to let them live, but she said it in such a cold and heartless manner. Old Xiao's family of 3 was politely ushered out of the Marquis of Jiayuan's estate. Upon hearing the news, Wei Ziqin hurried to the door and said coldly, "Please wait." "Ziqin, are you really sick?" Faint astonishment flashed through sixth Aunt Xiao's eyes. Even she thought that Wei Ziqin was avoiding them earlier. Wei Ziqin had a sickly expression and a thick fur cloak draped over her shoulders as she was helped out of the door by Chunying. When she heard this, she couldn't help but sneer. "There are some things I originally didn't want to say, but you shouldn't blame Jojo. Back then, she wholeheartedly wanted to take all of you with her." "Sixth Aunt, speak with your conscience. Was it because you were obstinate and didn't want to leave?" Cough, cough. "Madam." Chunying extended a hand to support Wei Ziqin's arm. After Wei Ziqin was brought back from Clearwater Fine Park that day, she had caught a bit of a cold and hadn't recovered from her coughing. It was especially cold today, so she shouldn't have come out to be exposed to the wind. Wei Ziqin raised her hand to stop Chunying from speaking. She looked indifferently at sixth Uncle Qiao's family and said, "I understand my daughter better than anyone else. Even if you treat her a bit well, she will return it 10 times over. I'm guessing that she originally wanted to go over the next day to persuade you, but that night, no one knew that zombies suddenly broke out in the village. Did we want that to happen? No one wanted that to happen." Wei Ziqin reprimanded loudly, her expression somewhat agitated. "Ziqin, we understand. Your health isn't good. Go back and rest first." Sixth Aunt Xiao's eyes shrank as she glanced at Madame Wei. Wei Ziqin took out a storage talisman and handed it to sixth Aunt Xiao. "Take good care of it. There's enough supplies for 3 months inside. Drip a drop of blood and you can retrieve it. From now on, everything between us will be written off. All of you. Please take care of yourselves." After Wei Ziqin finished speaking, she didn't wait for Qiao Laoyou's family to reply and turned to enter the house. With a cold face, Chunying slammed the door shut with a bang. Sixth Aunt Xiao opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but when she caught up with the stairs, she saw the door close with a bang. For a moment, she felt a lump in her throat. She didn't know why, but she had the urge to burst into tears. It was as if he had pushed this family out with his own hands. This feeling of a complete break was really hard to bear. Early in the morning the next day, the family of 3 boarded a donkey cart that they had contacted and quietly left the Mo Kingdom capital. The carriage was shaking slightly. Xiaoya was curled up in the innermost part of the carriage. She hugged her knees with her hands and kept her head down in silence. "Xiaoya, it's all my fault. It was mother's wrong decision, so." Xiaoya lowered her head and shook it slightly. Her voice was low and there was a hint of sobbing in it. "It's not your fault, mother. It's my fault. I thought too much of a person's heart. It's my fault." She thought that she had abandoned her, betrayed her. The instant they met again, she even felt that that person was too dazzling. She really wanted to destroy this dazzling person with her own hands. The little donkey cart rocked out of the Mo Kingdom capital. Xiaoya seemed to see 2 half-grown little girls holding hands by a small stream in Quoto village. "Eat." She stuffed half a steamed bun into Xiaoya's dirty hands. But all of this couldn't go back. Xiaoya suddenly burst into tears. Chapter 939. For the sake of fairness, the 8 great patrician families' competition venue was set at the Assembly of Worthies Martial Arts Club. The owner of the martial arts club, Ho Ping, was a woman in her early 40s. She was quite astute and capable, so she started preparing the venue for the 8 great patrician families' competition 3 days in advance. Arbor had nothing better to do these 2 days, so she stayed at home to draw talismans. If not, she would read medical books. She didn't really want to go anywhere because she was a bit lethargic. When Duan Yu came to visit her once, he even gave her a heads up and divulged some information, such as who the Duan clan would send out for the competition and who was relatively more formidable. He had mercilessly sold out all the members of the Duan family who were going to participate in the competition to his little Qiao Qiao. Do you have a grudge against the Duan clan? Arbor looked at him exasperatedly. That's right. Duan Yu folded his slender legs and looked at her with a grin. Jojo, let me tell you. I heard that you can use anything in this competition. What concealed weapons? Medicine. That mystic beast, of course. You can also use talismans or anything. Here, I will provide a large box of concealed weapons as a friendly gesture. You can use it without worry. If you don't have enough, come get more from me. Arbor. Why did she feel like this guy wanted to see the world plunged into chaos? Let me tell you. Those Omega Kotoku, Eldest Qin and the like aren't qualified to participate. This is a competition for youths under the age of 20. You can definitely do it. You can definitely beat those little bastards to a pulp and make them cry for their mommy and daddy. Are you an old person? Arbor rolled her eyes. He spoke as if he could participate. Duan Yu pursed his lips. That's right, draw more talismans in the afternoon. The more the better. At that time, I'll sit and watch you smash them to death with talismans. Sleep early tonight. Otherwise, you won't have the energy for tomorrow's competition. Xiao Mu's mood suddenly turned for the better when she saw the brat prattling on and on. You're so annoying. How am I annoyed? Duan Yu followed her petite figure as she paced back and forth. I'm speaking the truth. Just focus on making more preparations. Then do you know who among the younger generation of the Mu family is an expert in using talismans? Right now, she really wanted to find someone to compete with her in talismans, alright. What was the name of that guy from before? Mu Youngda, right? What a weakling. Just thinking about it made him angry. Could there be someone more reliable who could compete with her on talismans? Someone like you? Duan Yu shook his head honestly. No. However, among the Mu family's younger generation, the most talented one is Mu Zijuan. He is 18 years old this year, his talisman drawing is not bad, right? At the very least, she's much more impressive than the likes of that Mu Qianqian. Duan Yu said with a chuckle, but this person is a lunatic who uses talismans. You have to be careful. Even lunatics can participate in the competition. Tisk, that talisman aristocratic family, in order to obtain a spot, not to mention a madman, even an idiot would be released. Alright, Arbor nodded. Duan Yu, who in the Duan family do you especially want me to beat to death? Seeing as he had helped her quite a bit in the past, she would help him all the way to the Western Paradise. It would be easier to make a move after finding out his name. Duan Yu's eyes brightened, and he quickly whispered into her ear. Arbor abruptly turned around to glare at him. Why are there so many people? Duan Yu's eyes curved into a smile, revealing his white teeth. Beat them to death with all your might. I'm relying on you, Jojo. Arbor looked at him speechlessly. I'll do my best. Chapter 940. Nighttime. Inside Chonghua Palace's eerie little woodshed. Zhengru lies on the ice-cold ground, feeling the approach of death. Her entire body feels like it's in a furnace, so hot that her entire body feels like it's going to burn up, burning from the inside out. The Imperial Physician Building's doctors can still handle the surface burns, but the heat poison inside the body is something that almost all of the doctors are helpless against. Heat poison. When has she ever been poisoned with heat poison? When Zhengru hears this news, she almost can't believe it herself. Who in the palace isn't like her, eating and drinking every day with extreme caution? How could she be poisoned with heat poison without rhyme or reason? Creak. Because Zhengru suffered a serious blow from the explosion, her neck is also seriously injured, so she's basically unable to lift it right now. But she's very clear that these footsteps are Mammy Sue's voice. Ever since she was demoted to the cold palace, that damned girl Kaling abandoned her and never came to see her again. Now, there's only Mammy Sue by her side. If even Mammy Sue leaves her, she simply can't imagine it. Heh, you're actually so miserable and so useless. You can only lie here like a cripple, moaning and lamenting about nothing. A low and hoarse sneer pierces Zhengru's eardrums, a voice that seems to come from the netherworld. It's a pity that she can't move her neck. And because her eyes were damaged by the explosion, her vision is already very blurry. It's only when the person follows Mammy Sue in front of her and gets very close that she can clearly see that this short man is one of the short clowns from the Luo family troupe. He's very short, and his face is also strangely ugly. Mammy Sue, you. Zhengru wants to prop herself up to sit up, but she can't move at all. Mammy Sue looks at her and sighs, Xiaoru, this is Shuntian Prefecture's Black Darren. You don't have to be afraid. Lord Black is here to help you. Zhengru suddenly became excited. Although her vision was blurry, she still tried her best to widen her eyes, wanting to see the clown's expression clearly. Really? Lord Black. The short ugly man sneered. Noble consort Zheng actually ended up in such a wretched state. To be honest, you're useless even if you don't die. The clown's words made Mammy Sue's entire body tremble as she hastily stretched out her hand to grab his sleeve. Sir Black, you didn't tell me this before. You said you would help our Xiaoru. Su Fang, have you been with Consort Zheng for too long? You're too emotionally invested in her. Remember who your real master is. Sir He shouted coldly. Mammy Sue trembled all over, and then her voice faded away. She shrunk her neck and lowered her head. There's only a dead end in front of you, but let's see if you dare to take a gamble at the final moment. Sir Black laughed coldly. His laughter was very hoarse, and it was completely different from the voice he pretended to use when he was singing. Zhengru trembled all over, and she tried her best to widen her blank eyes to look at the clown. The clown stretched out his hand and took out a black pill that emitted a strange smell. This is a strong recovery pill. As the name suggests, after you eat it, your whole body will immediately recover, and your body will regain its former youth and beauty. Even your physical strength will be stronger than before, Kakik. As soon as Zhengru heard this, her eyes lit up with the hope of survival. Chapter 941. Heavens! It could actually heal her completely in such a short period of time. Could such a miraculous medicine really be given to her? Zhengru did not notice Mammy Sue's trembling gaze. She struggled intensely for a moment. Can you give it to me? Sir Black. As long as you can heal my body completely. I swear, for the rest of my life, I will serve Sir alone. The clown snickered and extended his hand to hand over the pill. There's no harm in giving it to you. Xiaoru. Mammy Sue suddenly cried out in shock. Following that, she gave the clown a sinister look, causing her entire body to tremble uncontrollably. Her shoulders trembled and she took 2 steps back. Mammy Sue, wait for me to recover and regain the great king's love. I will give you unparalleled glory and benefits. I will definitely repay you well. Zhengru was extremely agitated. She opened her mouth, waiting for the clown to feed her. The clown snickered. But you have to promise me one thing. Within 7 days, you have to get rid of the woman you hate the most. The clown rolled his eyes. Who is the woman you hate the most? It's Arbor. It's her. That slut. She's the one who caused me to be in this state. Zhengru's eyes emitted traces of poisonous light. Very good. It's her. After you kill her, you must remember to chop off her head and give it to me. This way, you'll have completed your mission. Sir Black snickered. Yes, this subordinate will definitely complete the mission. Ahaha, but you only have 7 days. I'm only giving you 7 days. Yes. In order to recover her beauty, in order to recover her body and be able to walk normally, Zheng Ru was willing to give it her all. Sir Black nodded satisfactorily. Then, don't disappoint me. Zheng Ru. After that, with a flick of his finger, that strong revival pill accurately entered Zheng Ru's slightly opened mouth. This pill that emitted a strange stench was probably the most delicious pill Zheng Ru had ever eaten in her entire life. Tomorrow, you'll be able to return to normal. Sir Black twitched the corners of his mouth with a strange expression. He then glared at Su Fang, who was standing at the side with a sympathetic expression, and brought her out of the woodshed. There was no moonlight tonight, under the pitch-black night sky. Sir Black's eyes were like a hawk's, staring at Mammy Sue's face. Watch your mouth. It's still the same thing. Recognize your true identity as a master. Yes. Mammy Sue's shoulders drooped, trembling as she followed Sir Black for a few steps. Then she couldn't help but ask, "But sir, do you really think that Xiao Ru is able to deal with the crown princess in these short 7 days?" Until now, Zheng Ru still didn't know that although the strong revival pill that she had eaten could completely restore all the muscles and bones in her body in a short period of time, she could only exist in perfect condition for 7 days. After 7 days, her body would instantly collapse into a pile of minced meat, without any possibility of recovery. Eating this strong revival pill actually meant that Zheng Ru had completely stepped onto a path of no return, and there was no hope of survival. Hee hee. Sir Black laughed strangely. Who knows? I'm just making use of what little value she has left, that's all, ha 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 ha. Prince Mo destroyed our Shuntian Hall so miserably for that little girl from the Qiao family, it's time to collect some profits from him. Chapter 942. Noon had yet to arrive. In the entire assembly of Worthy's Martial Arts Center's competition arena, the spectators had already successively headed to the private seats on the second floor. A long row of tables and chairs had been set up in a circle near the railings. Today, all the reputable figures in the Mo Kingdom capital had basically come to watch the competition. Those with lofty statuses had all been arranged seats. The juniors from the various clans who had come to watch and learn naturally could only stand behind their elders. Although the assembly of Worthy's Martial Arts Center wasn't small, it was still crowded when 1,000 people were squeezed inside. As a result, some of the smaller clans' patriarchs weren't arranged seats and could only stand slightly further back to watch. Even so, those who could come basically all came to watch. After all, this was a rare competition. The entire Mo Kingdom capital was seething with excitement because of this 8 great patrician families competition. At this time, the common people were also gathered outside the assembly of Worthy's Martial Arts Center, relishing in the discussion of this grand competition. In order to let those common people know the results of the competition, the Martial Arts Center's master, Ho Ping, even specially had people sit in front of the Martial Arts Center and set up tea for a live broadcast, just like a storyteller. A group of people came after hearing the news, surrounding the streets to inquire about the news. Each and every one of them was more excited than the people about to compete. Hey, I heard that one of the 8 great patrician families was chased out of our Mo Kingdom capital a few days ago. Then why is it still the 8 great patrician families competition? You don't understand this, right? I heard that the Qiao family that was chased out is the crown princess's family. They don't know what's good for them. Who knows what kind of bizarre thing they did to anger our crown prince, so they were chased out. Now, the crown princess's father, the Marquis of Jiayuan, is in charge of the Qiao family. Right. I also heard that the crown princess will be representing the new Qiao family in the competition this time. I'm so excited. It's a pity that I'm not part of the 8 great patrician families, so I can't go in to watch the competition live. They're here. Wow, the Qin Estate's 2 young masters are here. In the blink of an eye, the entire street was covered in the screams of love-struck fools. Duke Qin, Duke Ziqin, young Master Ziqin. Oh, my Duke Qin. When Mo Yan led Xiao Mu down from the carriage, she saw a large group of neurotic women chasing after and intercepting something in front of them. With a single glance, he saw two young masters of the Zither estate trying to break through the group of women under the heavy protection of more than a dozen servants. Make way, make way. Please make way. Arbor was almost embarrassed to death by them. A bunch of idiotic women, as if they had never seen a handsome man in their lives. Wow, it's the Crown Prince. Your Highness, it really is Your Highness. Long time no see, Your Highness. Damn it. Fuck, stop squeezing. Squeeze your sister. Jojo, save me. Crown Prince immediately turned into a pitiful little boy and bitterly followed behind Arbor. He even very naturally reached out and wrapped his arms around her waist, blocking her in front of him. This bastard. Scram. Seeing that a pervert's hand was about to touch Mo Lien's handsome little face, Arbor threw a punch and threw the pervert out of the circle. Jojo, save me. On the other end, Duan Yu was dragging Situ Yi over. Their clothes were a bit disheveled from the tugging, and they ran over with pale faces. Arbor was furious, and with a karate chop, he knocked down a certain woman who refused to let go of Duan Yu's sleeve. Why aren't you fighting back? They were all idiots. Don't you know? Our Mo Kingdom capital has a written rule that mystic cultivators are not allowed to attack normal people without reason. Chapter 943. Oh. So it's like that. Arbor dryly responded and silently retracted her small hand. Seeing the men beside her strangely stifling their laughter, Arbor asked seriously, Then did you guys see me attack? No. They shook their heads at the same time. Right, I'm just a baby. I definitely didn't attack. I'm warning you guys, stop tugging. Try stretching your paw over here and see. I won't bite you to death. Arbor irritably slapped away a plump paw and squeezed her way through the crowd. Just as she arrived at the entrance of the martial arts center, she came face to face with the two young masters of the Qin family who had squeezed their way over with great difficulty. Ayaya, it's Xiao Bao. Eldest Qin's eyes brightened, and he ostentatiously waved his hand at her, smiling like a flower. Xiao Mu rolled her eyes at him and was about to squeeze past them into the door without another word. At this time, an especially bold 18-year-old young lady dashed over like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. With a shriek, she threw herself at the Qin estate's eldest young master. Miss Qiao simply reflexively raised her leg and sent the other young lady flying with a somersault. That wind-like movement, from extending her leg to sending her flying, was simply done in one go. This caused the surrounding young masters' mouths to twitch as they inwardly chuckled. The 18-year-old young lady's rustling as she fell into the crowd attracted a wave of curses. Soon, there were people criticizing Arbor all at once. How could a young lady like you attack? You're a mystic cultivator, right? Don't you know that mystic cultivators can't attack ordinary people in our Mo Kingdom capital? The middle-aged woman who was criticizing her was rather agitated. She even went around shouting, I'm telling you guys. My sister-in-law was injured by a little mystic cultivator a few days ago. Ha! A mystic cultivator attacking an ordinary person, that's too inappropriate. Right, we can go to the capital magistrate's office to report her. Don't think that we don't understand the law. How am I a mystic cultivator? Do I look like a mystic cultivator to you? Arbor asked expressionlessly. She indeed didn't look like one. How old was a soft and adorable little lady with a stoic face? How could she send someone flying with a kick? Could it be that their eyes were playing tricks on them just now? Bad way. Qiuming. Amidst the hubbub, two groups of very obvious shouts could be heard from the left and right. The crowd had no choice but to move to the side a little, making two small paths for people to pass through. Hong Bai of the Hong clan and Fan Xiuming of the Fan clan each led 2 small teams and walked over in an imposing manner. Most importantly, there was a large group of men and women following behind him. Let's call them fans for now. They carried large flags and slogans, and there were even people who specifically directed the fans to shout slogans in unison. They were valiant and high-spirited, as if they were raising a flag to rebel. Xiao Mu's gaze swept over before she rolled her eyes and uttered, "Idiot." Prince Mo held back his laughter and coughed lightly. "Jojo, there are too many people here. Let's go in." Arbor nodded. Just as he was about to turn around, he saw an average-looking man in his mid-20s squeeze out from the crowd behind him. He jogged the entire way and feigned a forthright laugh. He stretched out his arms in a hug and ran towards Duanyu, who was on the steps. "Old Four, I've been looking for you for a long time." Duanyu's lips curled into a wicked smile. He sent out a burst of mystic energy from his fingers, which hit that man's knee like a storm. Chapter 944. Under everyone's gazes, that unlucky youth suddenly prostrated himself on the ground with his head facing downwards in a grand kowtow at Arbor. He fell to the ground with a thud, and his nose bled miserably. Mo Lien, eldest Qin, and the others all turned their heads away, unable to bear watching. The crowd was silent for a second before bursting into guffaws. Duanyu pulled out a small gold-embroidered fan from somewhere and covered half of his handsome face with it. His peach blossom eyes blinked provocatively as he laughed wickedly. "Aya, third brother, what are you doing? The new year has already passed, so you don't need to perform such a grand ceremony." The Duan family's third son, Duan Yonyan, was flushed red from holding back his laughter. He quickly struggled to get up from the ground and looked with a stifled heart at the jeering crowd around him. Those friends in the crowd were all rocking back and forth with laughter, and they even fell down from time to time. And at this juncture, our dear Xiao Mu's expressionless little stoic face was especially eye-catching. Duanyu leaned over slightly and specially looked at the little stoic's expression. He then pursed his lips and huffed, "Why aren't you laughing? Everyone is laughing, but you're not laughing. So unhappy." He was just trying to make her laugh. "Is it very funny?" Arbor rolled his eyes at him and turned around to throw down the word, "boring," before walking straight into the martial arts center. Everyone present who was laughing heartily all felt awkward, and their expressions suddenly became a bit strange. It was a feeling of wanting to laugh, but suddenly being splashed with a bucket of cold water from top to bottom, and the passion was instantly extinguished. Duanyu followed in with a guffaw. "Jojo, it wasn't that funny at first. But when I saw those people being intimidated by your cold face, I felt it was very funny." Humph. When Arbor walked into the martial arts center, Hall Master Ho Ping came over to greet him. Her eyes flickered rapidly as she revealed a smile. "Greetings to the Crown Prince and Crown Princess." Ho Ping bowed in greeting. At this time, Fan Xiuming and Hong Bai's forces were crowding at the entrance of the martial arts center. Neither side was willing to back down, so they blocked the entrance. "Ba Wei! Xiuming!" he roared furiously. The two teams squeezed at the entrance like fighting cocks. Before the competition even started, they had already rolled up their sleeves and revealed their fists, ready to go all out. When Zhao Qiran walked over on foot with a personal maidservant, she saw the two groups blocking the door. They refused to budge even half a step and blocked all the people who wanted to enter the door. "Isn't this the Jade Hue House's Miss Ran? Why would a brothel girl come here? Tisk. Does she think that she can still enter the 8 Great Clans competition to watch it?" While everyone was talking, the owner of the Juxian Martial Arts School, Ho Ping, ran out as if she was putting out a fire. She quickly separated the two teams that were about to fight and said, "The competition is about to start. You'd better go in and prepare. Don't be late for the first match." Fan Xiuming and Hong Bai both stepped into the Juxian dojo at the same time. Fortunately, both of them were of standard build. They squeezed through the door and walked in at the same time. The two teams behind them shouted and waved their fists as they also fought to be the first to enter. This caused the owner of the Juxian dojo, Ho Ping, to wipe her sweat and shake her head repeatedly. Hall Master Ho. Zhao Qiran nodded at Ho Ping and leisurely walked into the martial arts center. Chapter 945. The expressions of the aunties who were currently gesticulating at Miss Ran behind her back instantly turned somewhat unsightly. What a foul atmosphere. How can even brothel girls enter the martial arts center? Isn't that so? Is it a competition or a song of romance? It really gives people a strange feeling. Ho Ping knitted her brows upon hearing this, and she turned to look at those gossipy women. Miss Ran came because of someone's invitation. Ladies, watch your mouth and don't speak irresponsibly. The aunties all revealed disdainful expressions, but they didn't dare to continue arguing with Ho Ping. Seeing that it was about time, Ho Ping ordered people to close the martial arts center's doors. However, she heard an indifferent voice say, "Wait a moment." Ho Ping turned her head and saw a few young masters and young misses following the separated crowd, slowly walking towards them. The screams of love-struck fools rose and fell in succession from the crowd. Song Yingxiu coldly surveyed her surroundings. What are you shouting for? Haven't seen a man before. Young Master Mu Zijuan of the Talisman Patrician family, you've come late. Ho Ping politely nodded at that young sir who was about 18 years old. Mu Zijuan's appearance was unprepossessing, and he was much shorter than the other young masters, with a faint gloomy aura hanging from his face. However, the one Ho Ping hastily ran over to welcome was a handsome young master with a sickly complexion and a white fox fur coat draped tightly around his collar. Greetings to young Master Yun. Ah, sixth young master has also come. Shi Guangyun cupped his fists at Dojo Master Ho with a smile and said politely, Dojo Master Ho, long time no see. Dojo Master Ho. Sixth Sheng smiled faintly. When Ho Ping saw this sickly young master and Sixth Sheng, her smile became much more sincere and cordial. Song Yingxiu swept a glance at Shi Guangyun and Sixth Sheng before saying coldly to Ho Ping, Dojo Master Ho, can you bring us in? Ho Ping opened her martial arts center in the Mo Kingdom capital, so she usually recognized all sorts of high officials and noble people. This Miss Song Yingxiu, the second daughter of the Minister of Revenue, wasn't someone easy to talk to. She didn't dare to slight her at once and repeatedly nodded, inviting Mu Zijuan and Song Yingxiu's party inside. Mu Zijuan and Song Yingxiu's party had 7 or 8 people, while Shi Guangyun and Sixth Sheng had come together as a pair. Thus, the two of them indifferently followed behind Mu Zijuan and the others and entered the dojo together. As soon as Ho Ping closed the door, the heavy dojo doors were closed by 2 body cultivators. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of the stairs made many people turn their heads and look at the stairs. When the Mu family head saw his adopted son, Mu Zijuan, he couldn't help but relax a little. He took a few steps forward and extended his hand. Just as he was about to pat Mu Zijuan's shoulder and exchange a few pleasantries, he saw Mu Zijuan walk past him with an indifferent face. He didn't even let him touch him. Mu family head's hand froze in mid-air, provoking a few mocking laughs from the side. The moment Shi Guangyun and Sixth Sheng arrived, Wu Xiao and hastily ran out from the Wu family's ranks and welcomed them with a chuckle. Sixth young Master Yun, you've come as well. The competition was about to begin. It was said that the rules of today's competition were a little weird. There was no need to draw lots. Whoever was capable could go up. The 6 people who can stand on the field in the end would be considered the winners. Sixth Sheng nodded. Shi Guangyun saw Prince Mo with a glance and hastily went up to salute in greeting. Mo Yan was slightly taken aback. She greeted him with a smile before her gaze landed on Sixth Sheng. Chapter 946. Just looking at Sixth Sheng irritated him. Sure enough, before Prince Mo could open his mouth to exchange pleasantries, the little girl beside him jumped out first, and her pitch-black eyes suddenly brightened. Little Sixth. Seeing that this small claw was about to pat Sixth Zheng's shoulder, Mo Lian's eyes were sharp and his hands nimbly pulled her small claw back at once. A certain person was caught off guard and was pulled back by the crown prince. She crashed into his arms with a thud, and her little head hurt from bumping into his hard body. Huifeng silently twitched his mouth. He kept feeling that if he didn't keep a close eye on the crown princess, she would run outside the walls. What should he do? His heart ached for his master. Guarding against this and that, he felt that everyone was especially unreliable. On the side, Duan Yu felt so angry. He discovered that the little girl's eyes would freaking light up every time she saw Sixth Zheng. Why the heck was it like this? Where did this unorthodox Sixth Zheng pop out from? Sixth Zheng. Duan Yu jumped up, but the elderly man, who was silently sipping tea next to him, didn't even look up. He looked calm, but his mouth couldn't help twitching. I haven't sparred with you in a long time. Let's go. I'll compete with you, punk. Duan Yu suddenly jumped down from the second floor. Sixth Zheng naturally wouldn't shrink back. He turned to glance at the little girl before also pressing down on the railing. His body rapidly jumped down and landed steadily in front of Duan Yu. Ho Ping, who was about to announce the competition rules, was speechless as she looked at the two young sirs who jumped onto the competition stage before her. Has the competition started? Fuck, I'm not ready yet. Who went up first? They're simply warriors, alright. Everyone knows that it's more worth it to go later. I heard that the competition rules are that the one standing at the end is considered the winner. That seems to be the Zheng estate's sixth young master. He's not from our 8 great patrician families. Isn't little fourth Duan not qualified to participate in this competition? What was going on? Everyone was dumbfounded as they looked at the two people below who had already entered battle mode. Duan Yu gently blinked his beautiful watery eyes and swayed his waist as he chuckled. Little Sixth Zheng, you have to be careful, ah. As soon as he finished speaking, a string of bead-like concealed weapons shot towards Sixth Zheng at top speed. They directly circled around him like a curtain of beads, instantly covering his entire body. Explode. Duan Yu grinned, but a cold glint flickered in his eyes. After a series of loud bangs, little Sixth Zheng's figure was completely shrouded in layers of smoke. A long raven bone sword appeared in Duan Yu's hand, and a snow-white ray of light suddenly slid past Sixth Zheng's eyes. Duan Yu, what are you doing? The little girl jumped up. Duan Yu actually drew his sword. This guy would only draw his sword when he was about to kill someone. Duan Yu. Don't bully Lil Six. Arbor was so anxious that he jumped down the stairs. Prince Mo didn't even have time to catch it. Seeing the little fellow jump, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Behind his master, Huifeng had a hard time suppressing his laughter. So strange, I keep feeling like the crown prince is going to be cuckolded. When Duan Yu saw Miss Qiao jump down, he had already stealthily put away his sword. At this time, he was looking at Miss Qiao innocently. I didn't bully little Sixth Zheng. Little Sixth Zheng, are you alright? A certain person wanted to pull little Sixth Zheng up, but Duan Yu pulled her to his side. Chapter 947. Jojo, did you come down to compete? Duan Yu coughed lightly as he held back his laughter. Nope. Why would I compete? It hasn't even started yet. Arbor rolled her eyes at him. She wasn't a fool to be a neurotic bird that stuck her head out. Even if she wanted to compete, she had to look at the situation and compete a few rounds later. Everyone on the second floor. Sixth Zheng was actually fine. Duan Yu still had a sense of propriety in his attacks. Although his concealed weapons looked ferocious, they were actually mostly for show. However, the instant he drew his sword, he indeed wanted to leave something behind on little Sixth Zheng's body. Oh, because he didn't find little sixth Zheng pleasing to the eye. Cough, cough, cough. Smoke filled the arena on the first floor. After Hall Master Ho Ping jumped down, she hastily waved the smoke in front of her and looked at the little girl with twitching lips. The rules of today's 8 great patrician families gathering are, you can choose any opponent and compete at will. No matter how many rounds you compete, the 6 people standing on this stage in the end will be the victors. And obtain the entrance ticket to the Mystic Beast Forest's secret realm. Oh. Arbor nodded and was about to jump down to the 2nd floor with her small paws behind her back. Then I'll come down later. Duan Yu and 6th Zheng silently turned their heads and secretly glanced at a certain person speechlessly. Hall Master Ho Ping's lips twitched as she grabbed her sleeve. Arbor glanced at her. What? Let go. Cough, Crown Princess. You were originally a contestant representing the Qiao family. After coming down, you naturally can't go up again. Everyone on the 2nd floor couldn't help twitching their lips when they heard this. Arbor also looked at Hall Master Ho in bewilderment. What kind of weird rule is this? You didn't say anything earlier. This Ho didn't have a chance to say it. The 2 young sirs already started fighting just now. Arbor immediately waved her hand. What other rules are there? Say them all at once. There aren't any other rules. It's just that. The principle is that if no one continues to challenge the Crown Princess within an hour, then the Crown Princess will obtain a spot. When the little guy heard this, he immediately became unhappy. He tilted his little head and glared at Ho Ping. If that's the case, then I'm just a target. Finally, someone couldn't hold it in anymore and burst out laughing. Qiao Zhongbang, 2nd Uncle Qiao, and their family had all come to watch the competition. When they heard this, they couldn't help but look at each other, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, someone from the Duan clan laughed heartily. A person flew down, carrying a large saber. He snorted and said, Miss Qiao. I am Duan Yubing. Then I won't hold back. Let this Duan experience Miss Qiao's skills first. The old man wanted to grab his grandson, but his hand froze in the air. That bastard jumped faster than a rabbit, and in an instant, he was in front of the Crown Princess. The bird that sticks out gets shot. Can't you be more stable? Why did he have to rush over there? Looking for a beating. With this little girl's skills, the old man only needed to take a glance to know that his stupid grandson definitely wasn't her match. Duan Yu couldn't help but be amused when he saw this. He tugged at Arbor's sleeve and winked at him. Arbor shuddered and quickly pulled his sleeve back from Duan Yu's hand. He then nodded and said, Don't worry, I didn't forget what I promised you. I'll give him a good thrashing. Duan Yu was overjoyed. He grabbed 6th Zheng, who was beside him, and the 2 of them flew up to the 2nd floor. Chapter 948. After leaving the stage to the fearless Duan Yubing and Miss Qiao, Duan Yu swiftly hopped to Prince Mo's side and elbowed him. He asked with a sly chuckle, feeling stifled. Stifled my ass. Mo Yen irritably glared at him. Duan Yu propped up his chin and leaned against the railing next to Mo Yen. He turned to look at him and asked, Why don't you tell me? Why is it that every time my Jojo sees little 6th Zheng, her eyes seem to light up? Mo Yen was also a bit annoyed at the mention of this. How would I know? There are actually things in this world that you don't know. Duan Yu swept his sleeves and simply sat down next to Mo Yen. TSK, it can't be some past life or present life, right? After saying that, this frivolous young Master Duan started chuckling to himself. Mo Yen abruptly turned his head to gaze at Duan Yu with a profound gaze. What did you say? HM. Duan Yu looked back at him in a daze. The instant their gazes met, it was as if a certain realization flashed through their minds. Meanwhile, on the arena on the 1st floor. Duan Yubing had already put down the large saber slung over his shoulder and was laughing heartily at the little girl who didn't even reach his chest. He swung his robe suavely and stretched out his hand, posturing, "Come. I'll give you a handicap of 3 moves." Duan Yu's lips twitched when he heard this posturing after retracting his gaze from Mo Yen's face. On the side, elderly Master Duan almost jumped up from his stool. If his eldest grandson was in front of him right now, he would definitely slap him on the head. This fool. Did he get his head clipped by the door when he left this morning? Compared to young Master Duan Yobing's smug expression, Miss Chiao was much calmer. She merely replied with an, "Oh," upon hearing this. When eldest Qin saw this, he couldn't help but cover his face with his hand, and then he turned to look at young Master Omega Kotoku, who was staring fixedly at Arbor, and smiled mockingly. "Second brother, I saw Miss Ran from Jade Hue Parlor just now. Did you find her?" Omega Kotoku shook his head coldly. "No. What happened to you? You look like you haven't had enough rest." Omega Kotoku hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I've been awakened by nightmares for the past few days." He always felt like he had forgotten something. The scenes in his dreams were always covered with a layer of gray fog. He couldn't see clearly even if he wanted to, which made him very worried. "Oh." Eldest young Sir Qin chuckled. "I have a physician with good massage skills. You might be able to sleep better if he gives you a few massages at night." Omega Kotoku didn't decline. He just nodded and thanked him. "Come, let's do it." Duan Yubing revealed a honeyed smile and lifted his chin at Arbor. Everyone wanted to laugh, but they suddenly saw Miss Chiao's figure vanish into thin air. When she reappeared, she had already catapulted behind Duan Yubing, and a ferocious fist smashed into Duan Yubing's back with a bang. A burly man was sent flying into the air, and he bounced in midair due to inertia. With a loud bang, Duan Yubing was flung by Arbor onto the competition arena's railing and hung pitifully there. Everyone. There was no one else who could be this savage. They hadn't even seen clearly what was going on, alright? He was already flying. When the moving image turned to static, Duan Yubing was already hanging on the railing half dead. Chapter 949. The First Move. The little stoic's small face was cold as she uttered this sentence indifferently. Old Master Duan's eyelid jerked, and he feigned indifference as he asked Duan Yu beside him, "Little fourth, according to your understanding of the little lady, she wouldn't insist that little fifth give her a 3-move handicap, right?" "What handicap?" Didn't he find it a bit funny? He might not be able to defeat the little lady even if he didn't give her a handicap, yet he still had to give her a 3-move handicap? The old master couldn't bear to look at his foolish grandson. Of course. Otherwise, why would Jojo be counting off? Upon closer inspection, Duan Yu was rejoicing in her misfortune, and he even put on an act of consoling her. He said to the old master, "Grandfather, don't worry. When we carry little fifth back later, he'll at most gain 2 rounds of weight." Old Master Duan glanced at him speechlessly. Didn't his words hurt his heart? Gain 2 rounds of weight? How badly would he be beaten? On the other side, Duan Yubing finally climbed down from the railing with great difficulty. Leaning on his weapon, a large saber that was 3 feet long, he staggered to stand in front of Qiao Mu with great difficulty, an inhumane constipated expression on his face. Arbor's figure flashed, and he swiftly swept toward Duan Yubing. His figure was like a graceful line, so fast that it dazzled the eyes. Duan Yubing's hair instantly stood on end, and his entire body tensed up in a battle-ready stance. He swung his broadsword at Arbor. The little stoic was instantly enraged. "You said you'd give me a 3-move handicap." Duan Yubing was stupefied, but the broadsword in his hand reacted faster than him, and the broadsword's glint was already in front of Arbor. However, a burst of mystic energy with an imposing aura broke through the broadsword's glint in a split second, as if it had practically sliced the broadsword's glint into 2. The burst of energy shot back from both sides of Duan Yobing's body and smashed into the martial arts center's wall with a loud bang. Mottled stone powder rustled down inch by inch. The onlookers on the second floor were dead silent. You liar. You actually dared to lie to me. Didn't you say you'd give me a 3-move handicap? Why didn't you? Amidst the silence, the little fellow let out an angry roar. It really did look like it was burning with anger. Old Master Duan rubbed his forehead helplessly and turned to look at his grandson, who was smiling. On the second floor, some guy couldn't hold back his laughter, which led to a series of muffled laughter. Duan Yobing's heart was about to collapse. He opened his mouth, and his voice seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. I won't let you go. I won't let you use the last 2 moves. Shameless. Big swindler. The little stoic was furious, and she beckoned with her hand, summoning the pharaoh from her conscious. Furious dragon slash. Mo Yen facepalmed while Duan Yu guffawed on the side. It was really too funny. Duan Yobing's blunder was really too funny. Arbor had always been a person who never changed her mind. Duan Yubing had agreed with her, but he changed his mind halfway through. How could she not be angry? Duan Yubing took a step back and used all the mystic energy in his body to cover the broadsword's blade. In just an instant, the furious dragon slash rushed in front of him. Duan Yobing's defense appeared very fragile in front of Arbor, who had condensed a mystic energy vortex into the shape of a dragon's head. The moment the two collided, the winner was immediately decided. Buzz! After a muffled sound, Duan Yubing once again flipped backward. Following the momentum, he somersaulted twice in a row before finally hanging onto the railing again. Chapter 950. The room was silent. At this moment, everyone on the second floor didn't know what to say. If it was said that Duan Yubing had underestimated his opponent the first time, allowing Arbor to seize the initiative and finish him off with a punch, it could still be said to be a coincidence. But now, in a direct confrontation, Duan Yubing actually couldn't even take a single move from the crown princess. The 8 great patrician families understood each other very well, and the other families' patriarchs and elders were also fairly clear about the stage of Duan Yobing's strength. A level 9 mystic cultivator at his age could be considered a genius. But this genius actually couldn't even take a single move from the crown princess. It was obvious how terrifying the crown princess's true strength was. In reality, after using the Aurican Sealing Talisman, Arbor was no more than a minor level 7 mystic cultivator in everyone's eyes. The people from the Mu family, Wu family, Fan family, Hong family, and even the Dou family all widened their eyes in disbelief. Among them, only second Dou wasn't the least bit surprised by the crown princess's strength. He took a deep look at Arbor, who was standing on the practice field on the first floor, and a strange glint flitted across his eyes, which was then swiftly restrained. Second brother, you said before that you had once fought alongside the crown princess in Bailon City. Do you think she has already displayed her full strength? The Dou family's eldest young master, Dou Fengnian, glanced at his younger brother curiously. I don't know, but I can sense that her strength is unfathomable. Dou Fenghua shook his head. Wenren Ningjing, who had been sitting on the side with her lips pursed, suddenly interjected, her medical skills are also unfathomable. Dou Fenghua was startled, and he turned to look at his junior sister, Wenren Ningjing. His junior sister, Wenren Ningjing, had been spoiled by Uncle Master Da Yuan and Valley Master Wenren into being unruly and naive, but her medical skills were quite good. Today, he actually heard his junior sister praise the crown princess from her own mouth. Dou Fenghua found it a bit strange, so he took another look at Wenren Ningjing. Wenren Ningjing slightly lowered her head in embarrassment. Senior martial brother. Senior brother, I don't want to praise her, but the truth is indeed so. The medicine she makes is even better than my master's. The effect is excellent. If Wenren Ningjing knew that the medicine for removing scars and bruises that Arbor had given her last time in Bailon City was actually something that Arbor had casually stewed using a small stew jar from a street stall, who knew what she would think? Dou Fenghua was slightly startled when he heard that. He understood Wenren Ningjing very well. She was also a rather proud person and absolutely wouldn't lie in front of him. Moreover, there was no need to say that it was fake. Dou Fenghua's heart had a faint trace of calculation. Duan Yubing failed in his challenge and ended in tragedy. In the end, he was carried back to the second floor. When he was placed beside Old Master Duan couldn't help but twitch his lips when he saw his eldest grandson's chubby face. How pitiful. Duan Yu waved his small fan in schadenfreude. Come, come. Why are you still standing there? Hurry and carry fifth young master home. Send him to his own court and let him recuperate well. Two people came out from the Duan family and hurriedly carried the miserable Duan Yubing away. Before they left, Duan Yubing was still unconscious. They didn't know if he was really knocked unconscious by Jojo or if he was pretending to be unconscious because he was too embarrassed to open his eyes. After all, he was slapped every time, so it really was a bit embarrassing. The field was momentarily silent. Arbor stood all alone on the practice field on the first floor. For a while, no one else jumped down. Chapter 951. Cough. At this time, Ho Ping could only walk to Arbor's side and say to everyone, if no one continues to challenge the Crown Princess within an hour, then the Crown Princess will obtain the first quota. The other patrician families on the second floor all looked at each other in dismay. I'll go. Suddenly, a raised female voice reverberated in the venue. Mu Boming was greatly enraged, and he had just turned around to roar, Qianqian, when his daughter twisted her waist and did a somersault in the air before landing next to Arbor with a whoosh. The patriarch of the Qin estate, Qin Guelu, remarked with a smile, Family head Mu, your daughter is truly a newborn calf that isn't afraid of a tiger. Anyone could tell that Mu Qianqian basically had no chance of winning if she entered the arena now. Everyone was actually clear that the best method was to let the Crown Princess obtain the first quota, and then they would select the remaining 5 quotas from among them. Rather than forcefully confronting the Crown Princess, it would be better to conserve their strength and strive to obtain an extra quota for their family clan. When Hall Master Ho saw that someone had already entered the arena, he ordered someone to take away the timer and silently retreated from the arena. Arbor, make your move. Let me see what kind of strength the daughter of the capital's new patriarch, the Qiao family's patriarch, has to secure her position as the Qiao family's eldest miss. Mu Qianqian snorted, and a yellow talisman appeared in her left hand, which she threw at Arbor. Arbor's brows twitched, and he also threw out a talisman with a wave of his finger. With a flash of blue light, the two talismans drew a semicircle in the air before splitting apart and crashing into each other at the same time. The yellow talisman was instantly devoured by the blue talisman's talisman energy, and it shot toward Mu Qianqian. Mu Qianqian was greatly alarmed, and she threw out a defensive talisman to block in front of her. Bang! Arbor's advanced-level blue attack talisman had already penetrated the defensive talisman Mu Qianqian had set up and was heading straight for Mu Qianqian's face. Mu Boming instantly jumped up from his seat when he saw this, and he stared in shock at the blue talisman Arbor had thrown out. High-level blue attack talisman. This kind of talisman had never been circulated on the market. In the entire talisman aristocratic family, besides him, there were absolutely no more than 3 elders who were capable of drawing such a high-grade offensive talisman. Why would this little girl have such a talisman? Defensive talisman. Mu Qianqian, whose expression had changed drastically, instantly threw out 4 to 5 defensive talismans in front of her face. However, it was useless. It was still useless. She watched as the offensive talisman pierced through her defensive talismans, completely ignoring her defenses, and approached her eyes. In the nick of time, Mu Qianqian pulled out a hairpin from her hair and smashed it on the ground. After a loud bang, a shield-shaped defensive barrier suddenly appeared in front of her, blocking the attack of the blue talisman. The 10th grade defensive profound artifact displayed its greatest effect and blocked this wave of attack in an instant. Arbor's eyes flashed. He frowned and said, "If you're going to use a talisman, then use a talisman. Why did you open a defensive shield?" Mu Qianqian only felt that the young girl was humiliating her with these words, and her face flushed bright red. Her small hand under her sleeve tightly gripped the soul swap talisman that Sir Black Cat had given her. However, if she dared to use the soul swap talisman under everyone's watchful eyes right now, it would definitely bring her a great deal of trouble. At that time, she might become the target of public criticism right after the soul swap was successful, and she might be burned alive as a bunch of witches who would mistake her for a curse practitioner. At this time, Arbor suddenly swiped his hand across the air. Chapter 952. A row of talismans floating with blue light lined up neatly in front of Arbor after several whooshing sounds. There were no less than a dozen talismans. The row of high-rank blue attack talismans contained powerful talisman energy, and they were like arrowheads waiting to be fired at their owner's command. This time, those elders of the Mu family couldn't sit still any longer, and they all jumped up from their stools as they stared in shock at the talismans in front of Arbor. So many high-rank blue attack talismans. Mu Boming sucked in a cold breath, his entire person in an extremely unstable and stupefied state. He stared blankly at the expressionless little lady standing in the arena, and his fists involuntarily clenched tightly. He turned his head and couldn't suppress the indignation in his voice. "Elder Piao, do you think this little lady is a high-rank great talisman practitioner?" The one Mu Boming addressed as Elder Piao was the one who looked the most mellow among the Mu family elders, and he was also the head elder of the talisman patrician family. "High-rank great talisman practitioner, high-rank great talisman practitioner," Mu Boming muttered to himself. His entire being was rather agitated as he abruptly raised his head to look at the arena. He abruptly raised his hand and stood up. "Wait. Don't joke around. How could his daughter Mu Qianqian be a match for a high-rank great talisman practitioner?" With a move of Arbor's fingers, more than a dozen high-rank attack talismans circled around Mu Qianqian, shooting one talisman after another outside Mu Qianqian's defensive barrier. After the defensive barrier blocked the first, second, and third high-rank attack talismans, that hairpin-shaped defensive mystic weapon started to crack from the tail. By the time it received the fifth high-rank attack talisman, the entire defensive mystic weapon instantly crumbled and turned into fine powder. The remaining high-rank blue attack talismans instantly leaped in front of Mu Qianqian. Just as she was about to turn into dregs, Mu Qianqian shouted and raised her hand feebly. I admit defeat. I admit defeat." A trace of fury flitted through Arbor's eyes, and he leaped up without another word, punching Mu Qianqian's left cheek. Mu Qianqian staggered back several steps before collapsing on her butt. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her aura instantly wilted, cutting an extremely sorry figure. Her cold fingers tightly grasped the soul exchange talisman hidden under her sleeve. She suddenly raised her eyes to look in a direction on the second floor. Lord Black Cat was hiding there, looking at her disheveled state without any reaction. Mu Qianqian gritted her teeth, and her butt shifted slightly as she crawled back several steps. While coughing up blood, she shouted, I admit defeat, admit defeat. Don't attack me again." Seeing the little stoic approaching, Mu Qianqian actually let out an ear-piercing shriek. It was evident that she was terrified of this little fiend in front of her. Now that her face had been shattered into pieces, she naturally didn't care about anything else. In any case, he had to save his own life first. Arbor took back the remaining high-level offensive talismans, looked at her coldly, and said, "Have your family's talisman expert come out." It was only at this point that the astonished crowd came back to their senses one by one and clearly heard the conversation between Elder Pei and Mu Boming. Everyone was endlessly shocked in their hearts. the Crown Princess is actually a high-level Great Symbol Master. Not only was the Crown Princess a mystic cultivator whose cultivation couldn't be seen through, she was also an expert in talismans. How old was she? Even if she started practicing in her mother's womb, she couldn't possibly have become a high-level Great Symbol Master now, right? Mu Qianqian coughed up another mouthful of blood before putting the soul exchange talisman back into the depths of her sleeve. Chapter 953. I might not be good, but don't be smug. Mu Qianqian scoffed. Our Mu family has many talisman experts. Why you think that you're very awesome? Cough, cough, cough. After saying that, she even stubbornly glared fiercely at Arbor. Arbor shook his head. I don't know if I'm awesome or not. That's why I want to find someone to compete with. Everyone. They kept feeling that this child was inadvertently speaking the truth, which would infuriate them to death. That Mu Liangde from your family isn't as good as you. This child turned around and said this. Mu Boming was about to choke to death from her straightforward words. His gaze shifted to Mu Zhilan, who had an unsightly expression, before turning to look at the gloomy Mu Zijuan on the other side. Mu Zijuan creased his brows. Zijuan, don't go. Mu Boming couldn't help but shout when he saw this child's movements. Don't joke around. None of the Mu family's juniors were a match for an advanced-level Great Talisman practitioner. Since that was the case, why go up and invite humiliation? He might as well just let her get a spot and enter the arena. Mu Boming's plan was good, but the problem was that Mu Zijuan didn't listen to him at all. When he heard the elder's gasps and came back to his senses, he saw that Mu Zijuan had already leaped down and entered the center of the arena. Damn it! Mu Boming hatefully pounded his fists, a furious glint bursting out of his eyes. This brat had never listened to his words, and he had lost a spot for him for nothing. If he rashly went up, he would only seek defeat. Apart from this, there was simply no chance of victory. The elders also said angrily, why is Zijuan so disobedient? If he continues like this, he will undoubtedly suffer a crushing defeat. I originally wanted to let him and Zhilan fight for the Mu family's honor together. It would be best if they could obtain 2 spots. Mu Zijuan stood in the center of the arena with his hands behind his back, his gaze coldly hostile toward Arbor. Use your talisman. Let me, Mu Zijuan, experience just how superb your talisman arts are. Okay. Arbor went straight to the point without another word. He raised his finger, and a fire talisman with a blue glow instantly landed in front of him. Go! With a wave of her finger, the entire talisman split open. With the force of a thunderbolt and a powerful talisman energy, it instantly flew in front of Mu Zijuan. With a boom, the flames surged. Mu Zijuan felt as if his entire body had fallen into a sea of fire. His surroundings were filled with bright red flames, piercing his eyes to the point of discomfort. Fortunately, he was prepared and immediately activated the defense talisman. These 2 talismans were given to him by the elder. They were high-level talismans, and although they were only yellow talismans, they should be able to withstand the fire attacks of Arbor without a problem. Fire attack. Why was there a fire attack? The blue offensive talismans that Arbor had thrown at Mu Qianqian earlier were offensive talismans that contained powerful mystic energy. The mystic energy in the offensive talismans drawn by them wouldn't exceed 70% of the talisman practitioner's own strength. And now, if it wasn't an offensive blue talisman, then what was it? Mu Zijuan had simply never heard of or seen a fire attack. Even Mu Boming, Elder Pei, and the others were stupefied. Mu Boming gaped as he rummaged through all the talisman information in his mind. Finally, his hoarse voice trembled with fear as he said, "See, could it be? The 5 spirit talisman. Of the fire spirit talismans? How is that possible?" Elder Pei felt his own breathing quicken. Chapter 954. A high-level talisman technique like the Five-Spirit Talisman was an exquisite talisman technique that could only be learned in the main clan of the Divine Mainland. Mu Boming, Elder Pei, and the others only felt as if their eyes weren't enough to take in everything as they followed the nimble little figure in the arena. They saw her stretch out her hand. Pa! 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 She brandished 3 fire spirit talismans, causing them to split open at the same time. The fire spirit power within converged into a long dragon, which whipped straight at Mu Zijuan, who was enveloped in flames. Shit, this little lady was too savage. Everyone shuddered inwardly, and they looked sympathetically at Mu Zijuan, who was heavily enveloped in flames. At this time, Mu Zijuan's 2 defensive talismans were already completely insufficient. He could only do his best to dash left and right in the flames, attempting to break out of this heavy encirclement. At this time, he suddenly heard the sound of wind breaking through the air. Pa! A flame spirit whip lashed onto the back of his hand, leaving behind a fiery mark on his hand. Mu Zijuan subconsciously withdrew his hand, and with a furious roar, he threw an immobilization talisman at the little lady. Immobilize. Everyone in the arena held their breaths as they stared blankly at Miss Qiao, who had an immobilization talisman stuck on her body. She was done for this time. Mu Zijuan threw out a legendary immobilization talisman. Before he could finish lamenting, he saw the little lady rip off his immobilization talisman with a swish and casually crumple it into a ball. With a wave of her hand, 4 to 5 immobilization talismans were thrown back. So be it. Everyone couldn't help but twitch their mouths, feeling as if they were looking at an oddball as they looked at the little lady in the arena. What was going on? Wasn't this the #1 talisman patrician family on Seikong planet? How did the talisman patrician family's genius, Mu Zijuan, get caught unprepared by the little lady, and now he was actually immobilized on the spot? Boom! Waves of cheers erupted in the arena, and the majority of the spectators couldn't help but stand up along the railings, their gazes shining as they looked at the expressionless little lady leaning on top of him. Qinghuan. Qinghuan answered and appeared in the large arena, about to shoot Mu Zijuan to death with a mouthful of ice. A black figure suddenly leaped down from the arena and shouted with a chuckle, "Little lady, wait." Seventh Lord. Mu Boming's breathing abruptly stopped, and everyone in the Mu family stood up in awe as they reverently looked at the black-robed man in the arena. His Mu Zijuan's face eyes shone with a strange light. Even rarely seen, who is this person? Mo Lien creased his brows slightly before looking at Duanyu, who was enjoying the show on the side. This person's identity is very mysterious. Yu's master uses, Duanyu whispered, according to our family's patriarch, this person should have come from the upper 3 provinces. He was still sitting here, but this son of a bitch actually revealed his words to others without any hesitation. The Divine Province? Mo Lien was taken aback. He had naturally heard of the Divine Province's Mu clan's reputation. The Mu clan of the Talisman Patrician family here perhaps couldn't even compare to a pinky finger of the Mu clan of the Divine Province. His JoJo's against the Mu clan of the Divine Province. Mo Lien's heart clenched. Chapter 955. You're called. Arbor. When the man uttered the 2 words, Arbor, his expression changed slightly, and a strange light seemed to circulate in his eyes as he stared at her. Arbor nodded. This humble one is Mu Jingrue. The black-clothed man smiled faintly, and with a flick of his finger, a talisman circulating with jade light jumped between the 2 of them. It was a jade talisman, a rare sight. Arbor gazed at that talisman, her eyes brightening slightly, and her mood instantly improved. To be able to use an advanced-level summoning talisman to summon a divine beast, this little girl is indeed extraordinary. How about letting this Mu experience your brilliant moves today? The black-clothed man wasn't provoking her, but he truly wanted to test the little girl's skill. Just now, he saw her opening the talisman extremely fast and smooth, so she must be a disciple of a talisman master. What the hell was an advanced-level summoning talisman? Everyone was bewildered when they heard this. Why did they feel that the man's words were clear when they were taken apart, but the meaning was especially hard to understand when they were put together? Their hesitant gazes finally landed on the Qing Yuan spiraling in the air with some horror. Mu Boming nearly blurted out in shock, "This is a summoned beast." Wow, everyone was in an uproar. It was said that summoning talismans were on the verge of extinction, because on the entire Seikong planet, only the talisman patrician family had a single summoning talisman. In the entire talisman patrician family branch, no one could draw a new summoning talisman. Mu Boming couldn't, and those two all-powerful advanced-level great talisman masters and elders also couldn't. But now, this little girl in front of them could draw summoning talismans? Seventh Master's meaning was that this divine bird Qing Yuan was actually summoned by the little girl's summoning talisman. Heh, what a terrifying joke. Come. Arbor waved her white hand and directly took out 3 advanced-level attack talismans drawn with ebony. They whooshed over to the black-clothed man. The two powerful talisman forces collided, and in a split second, the two people's outer garments were blown up. The 3 advanced-level attack talismans were all blocked by the jade talisman thrown out by the black-clothed man. Arbor's gaze shifted, and she quickly retreated and threw out 4 explosion talismans. The moment the talisman shot out, it immediately exploded. The large martial arts practice field was filled with bursts of explosive sounds. The hard blue and white tiles of the first floor were actually blasted open by these layers of explosions. A defensive talisman array formed by defensive talismans had unknowingly appeared in front of the man in black. The moment the defense glyph array was activated, an impregnable wall seemed to have been built around his body, completely blocking the power of the explosion. At the same time, the black-clothed man raised his hand, and an offensive jade talisman that resembled a stream of light exploded. The surging profound energy that erupted from the talisman almost instantly rushed over, as if it wanted to tear Arbor apart. Arbor threw out 3 defensive talismans in a row to defend herself. Then, she leaped into the air, and with a flash, the water talisman raised a huge water screen in front of her. The other party's offensive jade talisman was quite impressive. This time, it penetrated the barrier formed by the 3 defensive talismans and exploded upon contact with the water screen that connected heaven and earth. The water mist that filled the sky swirled down, and a startled swan dagger appeared in Arbor's hand. As her figure flashed, the dagger was already swiping at the other party's chest. The speed was astonishing. Many people from the other patrician families practically held their breaths at the same time. They only felt that their eyes couldn't keep up with the two people fighting. Chapter 956. The two started off with a strong exchange of blows, stabbing, chopping, punching, and kicking. Within a short few minutes, they had rapidly exchanged over 100 moves. The more they fought, the more the man's eyes seemed to glow. The startled swan dagger in Arbor's hand was sharp, and with a light slash, she sliced off a strand of the black-clothed man's long hair. The black-clothed man was slightly shocked, and he inwardly praised, "What a great startled swan dagger," as expected of that person. The mystic light on the startled swan dagger swelled, and in the next second, he grabbed the sharp blade with one hand. Clang! A soft sound rang out, and everyone let out a cry of alarm. Especially Mu Boming, who was constantly paying attention to 7th Master, his expression turned very ugly. However, it was as if the dagger had collided with jade and couldn't advance any further. It turned out that this person's hand was covered in a layer of Vajra talismans. "Big brother, you're so awesome." Arbor withdrew the startled swan dagger, her small face flushed with a peculiar expression. "Even if I covered it with a Vajra talisman, it wouldn't be able to do anything to my dagger." If she covered it with a Vajra talisman, she wouldn't dare to clash head-on with the startled swan dagger because she knew better than anyone how sharp the dagger was. She couldn't defeat the startled swan dagger barehanded, which showed how powerful the Vajra talismans that person made were. Moreover, the defensive talisman matrix he released earlier was composed of 24 defensive jade talismans. It could block the combined attacks of many mystic cultivators below the spiritual realm, so its defensive power was quite impressive. With her current talisman crafting level, it was definitely very difficult for her to carve so many defensive jade talismans at once. This big brother was too awesome. On the contrary, Mu Jingrui laughed out loud. Little fellow, when I was your age, I was only an intermediate entry-level little talisman practitioner. Oh you're already pretty good. Mu Jingrui gave her 100% affirmation and praise. Arbor blinked and asked curiously, Big brother, what level are you as a talisman practitioner? Black level perfection. As for you, if I'm not wrong, you should be an advanced and proficient talisman practitioner. Little fellow, you're pretty good. The words, big brother, were a bit shocking. Mu Jingrui wanted to laugh on the inside, but he still gave Arbor an accurate answer. Black level. In other words, this person's talisman energy was only a step away from the Earth-grade talisman master level. Above the senior talisman master were the ranks of Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. At present, she hadn't even broken through to the Yellow rank. The gap between her and this Mu clan's profound rank Great Talisman Master could be said to be like the difference between Heaven and Earth. However, she had the Golden Talisman Jade Tome in her possession. She only needed to open the 7th Jade Slip to learn how to draw yellow-grade talismans. This was the allure of a peerless inheritance. The people of the world devoted themselves to traveling around the immortal mountains and beautiful rivers in hopes of finding a heavenly abode of immortals and obtaining the inheritance of an expert. As for that person's entry level and mastery level, they were all aimed at the speed of drawing talismans. The mastery level's talisman drawing speed was naturally much faster than the entry levels. Arbor thought, this 7th master of the Mu family probably isn't a member of a talisman patrician family from Seacombe Planet's mainland. Thinking this way, the stoic face didn't change in the slightest. She nodded and praised the man. You're also pretty good, big brother. Ahem. Mu Jingrui coughed lightly. Little fellow, may I ask, what is this dagger in your hand? Oh, this was left behind by my teacher. Arbor conveniently stored the startled swan dagger into her conscious. When she looked up, she saw that Mu Jingrui's expression was clearly startled. Chapter 957. Mu Jingrui paused for a moment before asking hesitantly, he's your teacher? Arbor glanced at him in confusion before nodding. She planned to drag the little monk to the inheritance mystic realm in 2 days to retrieve something. Since she was going there to accept the inheritance and test, she naturally had to address him as her teacher. Mu Jingrui smiled, his expression very gentle. Speaking of which, your teacher and I are somewhat related. If you don't mind, you can call me 7th uncle. After saying that, he took a deep look at Arbor. Arbor did not think much of it and only felt that this person was not bad. Whatever he called her would be a form of address, so she nodded and said, 7th Uncle Mu. Mu Jingrui smiled gently. Jojo, may I borrow a summoning talisman to learn? Arbor waved her hand, and a summoning talisman made of ebony floated in front of Mu Jingrui. The latter looked a little excited as he reached out to receive it. Jojo, let me study for a night and return it tomorrow. Arbor shook her head. You can have it. I still have a lot here, so I don't need it. Ever since she summoned the little white snake, her summoning talismans had become a pile of scrap wood again. She could not summon anything. She reckoned that she had reached her summoning limit. The current her was no longer the rookie who could summon weak chickens. Mu Jingrui chuckled and accepted it immediately. Alright, then 7th Uncle will go up first. I'll wait for you to win and obtain a spot. Mu Boming knitted his brows slightly when he saw this. He did not expect 7th Master to value this little girl Arbor so much. However, it made sense. The main family would also want to recruit a little girl who could draw summoning talismans. When he thought of how Xiao Mu, a mere child, had effortlessly obtained the divine province's main family's favor, Mu Boming felt extremely displeased. Mu Zhilan. Shilan. Mu Boming immediately interrupted her and pulled her behind him, glaring at her in displeasure. The Mu family only had Mu Zhilan who could compete now. At that time, whether or not she could get a place for the Mu family would all depend on her. Mu Zhilan creased her brows and resentfully retreated to Mu Boming's side. She looked up at the arena on the first floor. Even seventh uncle from the main family praised Arbor. She really wanted to go up and try it herself. Why did she know how to draw that summoning talisman? She really wanted to know if Arbor had any powerful legacies. Otherwise, with her strength alone, how could she have inexplicably drawn a summoning talisman? Mu Boming and the several elders of the Mu clan also stole a few surreptitious glances at Xiao Mu, feeling like ants were gnawing at their hearts. They were also extremely curious as to why she could draw summoning talismans. Mu Boming even inwardly calculated, if they could learn the method of drawing summoning talismans from this little girl, then wouldn't their branch family on Seacombe planet be like a carp leaping over the Dragon Gate? Everyone had different thoughts. In the arena on the first floor, the ground was cracked by the battle just now. At this time, Arbor was standing in the center of the cobweb-like ground, looking up at the people from the other 7 patrician families. After waiting for a long while, just as Arbor was about to fall asleep, a cold voice suddenly sounded. A cold voice suddenly slid through the air. Let me deal with eldest Miss Qiao. A cyan figure flashed, and a boy around 18 years old abruptly flipped down from the second floor and landed in front of Arbor. Chapter 958. It's you. The moment Arbor saw this brat, his eyes emitted a substantial killing intent. His furious gaze contained a trace of heavy pressure as it instantly attacked the brat. The brat only spoke half a sentence. Do family's do kue. Boom. Without another word, Arbor took out his ferrule and charged in his direction. He didn't even give him time to reveal his identity, and directly slapped down with his ferrule. Vast profound energy wrapped in a line of fire, and with a slip, it charged towards the brat named Do Kue. Do Kue was momentarily stunned. He really didn't expect that the moment he stepped onto the arena, his opponent's killing move would be right in front of him. Just how anxious was he to destroy him? Do Kue was also enraged. He opened his mouth and shouted, "Three-headed silver centipede lizard. Come out." Bang! With a huge tremor, a large lizard with 3 malevolent heads and a slippery tail appeared on the arena on the first floor. It was so ugly that he couldn't bear to look at it. A trace of anger flashed through Arbor's eyes. The ferrule in his hand slapped down again, and 2 talismans flew out from his fingers without any explanation. The 2 body-securing talismans flew out, causing Do Kue's heart to be fiercely shocked. Without any explanation, he lay down on the ground, barely dodging the 2 talismans that flew over. The defensive barrier quickly activated, and Do Kue angrily shouted, "Arbor, you actually didn't follow the rules." Arbor didn't say a word. His fingertips moved, and a handful of medicinal powder scattered over. Do Kue was greatly alarmed, and hastily retreated. Thinking again, he was inside the defensive barrier anyway, so why would he need to be afraid of the lowly medicinal powder she threw over? On the other side, Qing Wan flapped its wings towards the wriggling 3-headed silver centipede lizard on the ground. Icicles rapidly fell, shooting out hundreds of them at once. The 3-headed silver centipede lizard crawled twice, then suddenly hissed twice. Its tail trembled and swung, and a poisonous fog shot towards Qing Wan, who was hovering in the air. "A little reptile dares to be impudent in front of your grandfather." Qing Wan coldly cursed, then swooped down. Ice shards fell from its mouth, instantly burying the 3-headed silver centipede lizard. Boom! The 3-headed silver centipede lizard knocked away the ice shards piled on its back and hissed angrily twice. It turned its head and actually abandoned Qing Wan in a very human-like manner and went straight to Arbor where Do Kue was fighting. Mo Lian's phoenix eyes instantly turned cold. She gripped the railing with both hands and leaned forward to look at him with a cold gaze. On the side, Duan Yu also jumped up and angrily rebuked, "You beast, you still dare to injure people." Hiss. Scram. When Arbor saw the 3 silver centipede lizards running over, his eyes were filled with intense rage. She recalled the heart-wrenching encounter in her previous life. Her Shaolin-er's clothes were in tatters and her body was bruised all over. She had been abused to the point that there wasn't a single piece of unharmed flesh on her body. He was thrown into the wilderness like a pile of garbage and left to be gnawed by wild dogs. The family that had adopted her and abused her was a branch of the Dou family, Dou Kuei's parents. After her sister was adopted, she had gone to the rich family's house several times to peek at her. She remembered this face, she remembered it. It was him, Dou Kuei. She had finally met the culprit who caused her sister's death. Arbor sneered, and with a flick of her hand, she sprinkled several types of poisonous powder at that foolish 3-headed silver centipede lizard as if it didn't cost anything. Presumably, this 3-headed silver centipede lizard had gnawed on her sister quite a bit back then. Go to hell. Beast. Chapter 959. No wonder Shaolin-er's body was so tattered. Was that something wild dogs could gnaw on? That was the masterpiece of the Dou clan and the 3-headed silver centipede lizard. Afterwards, the corpses were thrown into the wild, and that group of dogs took advantage of them. TSK. How could she let them die in despair and pain? Arbor's eyes shot out a strong hatred, and she suddenly smiled like a spring breeze. 10 explosion talismans flew straight from her fingertips, surrounding the 3-headed silver centipede lizard's body. Explode! Bang bang bang! As if fireworks were set off on the scene, the 3-headed silver centipede lizard's body was instantly ignited by the raging flames, and its entire back emitted terrifying explosive sounds. Arbor's figure flashed, and like a ferocious little beast, she angrily rushed over. A crow-repeating crossbow already appeared in her hand, and a crow gold arrow shot out with a whoosh. In the next second, it instantly pierced through the 3-headed silver centipede lizard's back, causing it to be pushed back a distance by the huge force of inertia, heavily crashing into the wall. Go die. Arbor's eyes flashed fiercely, and 3 crow gold arrows shot out at the same time again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After a series of consecutive shots, the 3-headed silver centipede lizard was tragically shot into the wall, half hanging there, fresh blood dripping down. The entire arena was silent. Everyone's breathing almost stopped. Pairs of eyes stared in shock at this girl who suddenly exploded with a fierce killing move. The people of the Dou clan were especially shocked. They stared blankly at the little girl on the field, and a thought slowly turned in their minds, Dou Kuei's mystic beast. Died? Now it's your turn. Slag. Arbor swung her ferrule, and quickly rushed towards Dou Kuei, who had been flipped over by Qing Yuan's wing. Because his mystic beast died, Dou Kuei suffered a backlash, and a mouthful of old blood sprayed out from his mouth. His face was full of fear as he opened his mouth to beg for mercy and admit defeat. But in that instant, he opened his mouth and discovered, fuck, there's actually no sound. He had no sound. The poison that Arbor threw at him just now was to make him mute. What kind of joke was this? If he admitted defeat, how could she continue? Today, she was going to show everyone how she could slice human flesh on the spot. A sinister and vicious glint flitted across Qiao Mu's eyes, and a bone-chilling smile surfaced on her lips as she curled them up. Are you ready? Are you ready to be hacked into pieces? Ha 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 ha. A hatchet appeared in her hand. That's right, it was a rusty wood-cutting knife. It was the knife that father used to chop firewood in the village from time to time. It was very old-fashioned and blunt, but unexpectedly, it was very much to her liking. Arbor raised his head and glanced at Xiao Zhongbang and the others. At this moment, Jolin was standing beside Xiao Zhongbang. His little face was pink and tender as he looked curiously at the competition below. You see, now that I've killed your mortal enemy, he won't be able to harm you in the future. My dear sister, in this life, you will live peacefully and happily. You will no longer suffer any pain or torment. So, please stop. Miss Chiao. Crown Princess. Eldest young Master Do reached out and touched the railing as he shouted with a face full of shock. From the looks of it, the Crown Princess was going to kill Do Kuei. Arbor's right hand, covered with the Vajra talisman, had already fiercely grabbed Do Kuei. Her 5 fingers dug deep into Do Kuei's chest. That gesture was as if she was gouging out his heart. It was abnormally ruthless and frightening. Chapter 960. Second Do also stood up. He clearly saw that the depths of the Crown Prince Consort's eyes were clearly filled with severe hatred. But hatred? Could it be that the Crown Princess's hostility towards the Do family all came from this branch family? But why? Second Do couldn't figure it out and secretly ordered the disciple behind him. The disciple nodded and then turned to leave. Crown Princess, please calm down. I don't know how my Do family's Do Kuei has offended you. Xiao Mu's fist landed on Do Kuei's face. Just as he collapsed against the wall, the 5 fingers that had pierced into his chest deepened. I want to see what color your heart is. Only Do Kuei clearly knew how horrifying it was when the little girl in front of him said those words with her head tilted and her face paralyzed. Malicious spirit. It was as if she was a malicious spirit that crawled up from the underworld. This kind of expression made him vaguely feel as if he saw the gates of the underworld open for him. Do you know what it feels like to have a tattered body? Do you know what it feels like to be naked after death and even have your last shred of dignity taken away by you? Arbor leaned close to his face, her eyes flashing with an ice-cold light. I'll let you try it. Do Kuei's mouth was wide open, but he couldn't make a single sound. Fear and dread engulfed his heart. His entire body trembled and he almost went limp in her hand. Why did a mere competition turn into taking his life? The face of the seemingly cold and beautiful little girl in front of him was like a ghost smeared with blood. It looked extremely terrifying. Chi La. Arbor withdrew her 5 fingers, bringing out a piece of clothing, minced flesh, and blood. She coldly looked at the person paralyzed on the wall. His gaze was sluggish and hesitant. Because of the intense pain, his 4 limbs began to twitch. Enjoy your last bit of despair. Arbor coldly released her hand and raised the firewood chopping knife in her hand. She turned a deaf ear to the shouts of the people on the 2nd floor and chopped down with the knife. What came out of that chop was a piece of flesh from Do Kuei's arm. Then, without waiting for the surrounding people to cry out in alarm and react, dozens of hundreds of sabers were slashed out at an extremely fast speed. Although it looked chaotic and disorderly, in reality, only a small piece of Do Kuei's flesh was sliced off every time. It was truly a punishment of 1,000 cuts. Ah! The Do family members belatedly screamed. Eldest young Master Do's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he landed on the field with a whoosh. Do Kuei has admitted defeat, Crown Princess. He didn't admit defeat. Arbor glanced sideways at eldest young Master Do and said coldly, "Are you trying to break the rules of the competition?" Eldest young Master Do looked into Arbor's cold and emotionless eyes, not knowing what to say for a moment. The people from the other clans all swallowed their saliva. You won. Crown Princess. Yes. You defeated the Crown Princess. You got a spot. That's right. Come up quickly. I'm about to pee my pants, okay? Who would dare to compete with such a ferocious person? Hurry up and worship her like a bodhisattva and give her a spot. He didn't admit defeat. Arbor said coldly, not a single ripple of emotion in her eyes. Even some people who weren't familiar with her started to feel that. Did the great Crown Princess forget to take her medicine today? With a whoosh, Mo Lien quickly flashed to her side. A warm hand caressed the back of her hand as she softly called out, "Jojo." Chapter 961. Jojo. Jojo, Jojo. He tugged her small hand over and gently pulled her into his embrace, his other hand stroking her small head back and forth to soothe her. He could sense that the little fellow's body was extremely taut right now, and her entire being was in an abnormally stiff and icy state. She was trembling. What was his little fellow afraid of? This kind of little person truly made one's heart ache too much, and it made his heart ache endlessly. If it was possible, he was willing to hold the sun, moon, and universe in his hands in exchange for her simple smile. Jojo, oh Jojo, what exactly are you hiding in your heart? Why are you unwilling to confide in me? Let's not compete anymore, let's go home. Mo Lien picked her up and whispered next to her ear, "Darling, don't be scared. You have me if anything happens." After saying this, she abruptly glanced to the side, and a ruthless gaze landed on the nearby Do Kue. At this moment, Do Kue was in a rather wretched state. His 4 limbs were already exposing eerily white bones, and blood was still gushing out from his chest. From the looks of it, even if they carried him back to save him, he could only be reduced to a complete cripple. Very soon, the Crown Prince received a qualification tablet from Hall Master Ho and left the arena with Arbor in his arms. Duan Yu and the Qiao family group naturally weren't in the mood to continue watching, so they quickly ran out after them. Eldest Qin propped his chin up with one hand and tilted his head to look pensively at Omega Kotoku. "Second brother, what are you thinking about?" Omega Kotoku returned to his senses and reflexively glanced at eldest Qin, but he didn't say anything. He just inexplicably felt a trace of oppression in his heart. A very strange emotion lingered around his chest, as if it couldn't be brushed away, but it was also very hazy in his memory. Sir Black Cat, who had been secretly observing from a dark corner, mixed into the crowd at this time and elbowed the pale-faced Mu Qianqian. Mu Qianqian seemed to have been frightened by Arbor's ruthlessness, and she shuddered when Sir Black Cat touched her. It was as if she had been touched by something filthy, and she almost jumped up. Lord Black Cat lowered its head and wore a thick hood. Because he was shorter than the average person by at least half, as long as he did not deliberately touch the waist or legs of others, he would not attract anyone's attention. Mu Qianqian turned around and nodded at him in understanding. She then bent her back and shrunk out from the back of the crowd, following Sir Black Cat as they quietly walked downstairs. "If we don't make a move now, when will we?" Lord Black Cat's mouth, which was hidden under its black hood, flashed a cold smile. It lowered its voice and said, "The young lady is in low spirits now and is defenseless. You idiot, you don't dare to make a move with such a good opportunity. If you miss today, it will be even more difficult in the future." Will I succeed?" When Mu Qianqian recalled Arbor's ruthless methods from before, her body involuntarily shuddered again. "Yes." Lord Black Cat licked its lips, a strange glint in its eyes. An emotion called greed bloomed in the depths of his eyes. Mu Qianqian tightly grasped the soul swap curse under her sleeve and nodded fiercely. She steeled her heart and said, "Okay. I'll go now." After saying this, she clenched her fists tightly and turned around to dash madly toward the entrance of the martial arts center. When she exited, she saw His Highness the Crown Prince carrying that little bitch to the carriage. When Mu Qianqian saw that Arbor's expression was a bit dazed, she immediately narrowed her cold eyes. "Arbor, your good days have come to an end." Chapter 962. Quite a few people had gathered around where the carriage was parked, watching curiously. There were also several beggars sitting in the corner, filthy and in rags. They leaned against the wall and occasionally stretched out their hands to beg the people who walked past them. Mo Lien ignored these people and placed Arbor on the carriage. She then turned around and whispered something to Duan Yu, who had run over. Qiao Zhongbang and his wife also quickly followed over, anxious to check on their daughter's condition. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that there was something wrong with their daughter's mood just now. And right at this moment, Mu Qianqian arrived at the back of the carriage with a flash. Her brows twitched fiercely as she softly recited the spell terms that Sir Black Cat had taught her. The soul swap curse under her sleeve abruptly exploded into a faint black mist that swiftly shot toward Arbor's location. Black Cat simply sat in a row with those beggars, openly and in high spirits as he watched a good show. What if the soul swap curse could succeed in one strike, ha ha ha. He would secretly take away the eldest Miss Qiao after the soul swap and interrogate her about the talisman art inheritance at that time. That's right. Right now, Black Cat's greatest wish was to pry that complete talisman art inheritance out of Arbor's mouth. No one would believe that a 14 to 15-year-old little girl with superb talisman arts wasn't an inheritance. Black Cat's gloomy eyes flickered as he looked at the carriage. Suddenly, a beggar beside him kicked him heavily. What are you doing, snatching territory? Do you know first come, first served? This is my territory. The beggar who spoke was in his 50s or 60s. His oily hair was matted into knots that draped over his face and shoulders, covering the red and swollen frostbites on his old face. Frostbites covered his arms and exposed big toes. It could be seen that his daily begging in the wilderness was a miserable and ignoble existence that didn't even know where his next meal would come from. Yet he still dared to throw a tantrum like this. Black Cat had a belly full of anger but nowhere to vent it. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to attract attention, he would have strangled this repulsive stinky beggar to death long ago. Shrinking its body and wrapping itself under the hood, the Black Cat sat to the side. It ignored the old beggar and stared at the carriage. He was very nervous. He had to control the location of Miss Qiao's soul immediately after the soul swap. He definitely couldn't let her run away. In the blink of an eye, the soul swap curse that Mu Qianqian threw out had already transformed into a wisp of black light and abruptly arrived in front of Arbor. Mu Qianqian's heart was beating so fast that it was practically about to leap out of her chest. Arbor's hand, which was being held by his mother, suddenly froze. He sat up straight and stared at Prince Mo, who was standing beside the carriage. A trickle of blood suddenly trickled down from the corner of her mouth. It was so sudden that Qiao Zhongbang and his wife were scared out of their wits. "Jojo?" Wei Ziqin exclaimed. "Sister." Xiao Lin grabbed Arbor's small hand. However, Arbor seemed to have lost all her strength and abruptly fell backward. The back of her head was about to hit a corner of the small coffee table. Mo Lian's gaze contracted, and he swiftly flitted to her side and supported her small head. "Jojo? Sister. Quick. Quickly return to the residence." Qiao Zhongbang shouted in panic. "Huifeng, quickly summon old royal physician Qiao." "Yes, Your Highness." "Your Highness the Crown Prince." Mu Qianqian fainted behind the carriage. "Throw it further away." Chapter 963. Damn it. Sir Black Cat watched as Prince Mo's two subordinates cruelly tossed Mu Qianqian's unconscious body onto the rundown stall before swaggering off. He hastily and stealthily chased after them, grabbing Mu Qianqian and disappearing into the crowd with a few leaps. However, he was a bit hesitant in his heart. Strange, did she succeed or fail? But if the soul swap failed, the best-case scenario would be vomiting blood and paralysis, while the worst-case scenario would be her soul dispersing and dying on the spot. It didn't look like a failure. Forget it. Let's take Mu Qianqian's body away first. Perhaps eldest Miss Qiao's soul was already inside Mu Qianqian's body. Upon thinking of this, Sir Black Cat couldn't help but burst with joy, as if he could already see himself single-handedly controlling a rare talisman technique inheritance. Not long after he left, that old beggar whose entire body was covered in frostbites and whose head was covered in lice suddenly jumped up from the base of the wall. He looked at his hands one moment, then at his greasy hair draped over his shoulders the next moment, and he shrieked involuntarily. But when he truly heard his own hoarse drake-like voice, it was as if he had been struck by lightning, and his eyes bulged in fright. Old Sly, what's wrong with you? The other beggars who were leaning against the wall were all startled by his sudden deranged appearance. The crowd of spectators who were concentrating on listening to the competition situation frowned one after another as they glanced at the old beggar who was jumping and shrieking in fright. Ah! 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 That beggar looked at his hands covered in frostbites in fright, and his lips quivered as if he was having a seizure, his entire body shaking uncontrollably. He touched his hands that were covered in frostbites one moment, then reached out to cup that old face the next. His entire body was convulsing crazily from fright, and even his breathing wasn't smooth. The other beggars on the side snickered, "Old Sly, what are you doing? What are you convulsing for? Idiot! It wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. It wasn't me." The old beggar grabbed a slightly younger beggar next to him, and his lips quivered as he shrieked, "Mirror, mirror! Do you have a mirror? Mirror!" The beggar looked at him as if he was crazy. He was so angry that he gave him a kick. "Are you crazy? I am a beggar. Do you think I'm a big girl? Why would I bring a mirror with me?" This kick sent the frail old beggar to the front of a woman. He went up and wanted to hug the woman's leg. The woman was so shocked that she screamed. The husband beside the woman raised his leg and kicked him, causing him to roll back and fall to the ground with a bang. Coincidentally, there was a dog basin by the side with some water in it. He crawled over and took a closer look. He could vaguely make out what it was. Locks of hair stuck to his face as if they had been gnawed by dogs, and his face was old and ugly, covered with frostbite and wrinkles. He was so frightened that he screamed on the spot. "Ah! Ah! Ah! Ah!" The old beggar clawed at the ground and smashed it hard with his frostbite-covered hands. His eyes were filled with disbelief. "Ah!" He crawled to his feet as if he had gone mad, muttering, "Lord, Lord Black Cat, Lord Black Cat," as he ran madly to look for someone. Why was it like this? Mu Qianqian didn't know. The soul swap curse was a success. Mu Qianqian's soul had now been successfully swapped into the old beggar's body. Raise your hand in fright from the title. Chapter 964. It was a success, the soul swap curse. Mu Qianqian's soul successfully entered the old beggar's body, but this wasn't the success that Mu Qianqian wanted. This kind of successful soul swap didn't have any substantial meaning. Mu Qianqian howled like a madwoman the entire way as she searched for Sir Black Cat's figure all over the streets. Where was Sir Black Cat? He had long thought himself infallible and ran off with Arbor in tow. Since it succeeded, Sir Black Cat naturally had to find a secluded place and slowly interrogate Arbor about the origins and specific circumstances of the talisman art inheritance. Meanwhile, Mu Qianqian was running further and further away. She ran out of the bustling main street and shuttled through various small alleys like a madwoman, screaming, Sir Black Cat. Ah! Why was it like this? Her hand, her face. Would she be able to change it back? She must find Sir Black Cat, Sir. Ah, she didn't even have extravagant hopes of switching back to the Crown Princess's body now. She only wanted to switch back to her original body. She did not want to become a beggar. No. Ah, thump. Mu Qianqian's head seemed to have bumped into something, and it hurt. She widened her tear-filled eyes as she dazedly gazed at the empty space in front of her. There was nothing at all. Why did it feel like she had bumped into a wall just now? She shuddered her ice-cold and aged body before taking another step forward. Thump. This time, she clearly felt the feeling of being bounced back by a wall-like barrier. Ah! Mu Qianqian shrieked as she abruptly turned around, her eyes widening in horror. Little bastard, you've got guts. You actually dared to touch my disciple nephew's soul. An angry roar came from the void. Mu Qianqian was horrified to only see a faintly discernible projection in red clothes. She couldn't even see the person's features clearly, but the voice was extremely crisp, like a young woman's voice. Ah! 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 Mu Qianqian shrieked as she turned around, wanting to escape, but she still crashed into the barrier with a thump. She made a gesture to fling a talisman, but then she abruptly realized that this body wasn't her body. Where did she get talismans from? She didn't have talismans. This old beggar was just an ordinary person. Previously, when she forcefully entered the old beggar's body, she directly crushed the old beggar's original soul. Now, even if she used all her strength, she still wouldn't be able to break through the transparent barrier in front of her. Was she going to die? No, no, no. She didn't want to die. She didn't want to die. She was still so young. She was only 18 years old. She still had so many years to live. She couldn't die. Sob, 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 no, no. Mu Qianqian knelt down in terror and despair, kneeling in front of that red projection with a powerful aura. She repeatedly kowtowed and begged for mercy. Let me go, I beg you to let me go. I won't dare to do it again. I won't dare to do it again. She felt that the person in front of her was very powerful. It was as if he could crush her like an ant with just a stretch of his hand. Her tattered old face was covered with tears and snot, making her look extremely ugly. The projection harumphed coldly and swiftly formed several transparent hand seals. A bizarre energy instantly entered Mu Qianqian's mind. Mu Qianqian only felt as if her soul was being pinched by a giant invisible hand, and her entire body started trembling uncontrollably. Chapter 965. All of a sudden, an indistinct strip-shaped ripple appeared in the still air around them. A segment of transparent playback flashed before the two people continuously, and it passed by extremely quickly. Mu Qianqian gaped in horror as she looked at that transparent image that kept flashing. So scary. So scary. This powerful venerable one in front of her was actually able to extract memory fragments from the depths of her soul. Right now, the playback in front of that mysterious venerable one was precisely the time when she and Sir Black Cat had conspired to use the soul swap curse to harm Arbor. Mu Qianqian only thought that venerable one had used a special imprint to forcibly extract her memories. She didn't know that the other party wasn't squeezing her soul to extract her memories at all. The other party had the power of time and could reverse time even if he was facing the air. She was even more unaware of what kind of fate awaited her. Right now, she could only beg the other party bitterly. Mu Qianqian was extremely terrified. She completely couldn't muster up any thoughts of resistance. She sprawled on the ground like a puddle of mud, and her lips couldn't help but tremble as she shouted, "Venerable One, Venerable One. Venerable One, please forgive me, Venerable One. I beg you, please spare my life. I don't dare anymore, I really don't dare anymore. Venerable One, woo woo woo. Too scary. Why was there such a mysterious venerable one behind Arbor who was her Ant Master? As the red projection pressed closer, a powerful oppressive force closed in on her. It was as if it wanted to crush her entire body into brittle bones. This power caused Mu Qianqian to be unable to breathe as she knelt on the ground with her mouth agape. Scoundrel! It wasn't easy for us to stabilize her soul, but it was damaged by your greed. No, I don't know anything. Venerable One, spare my life, Venerable One, spare my life. Just a projection had such a terrifying aura. Then what if the real person was standing in front of her? Mu Qianqian simply didn't dare to continue thinking. Ha! You actually dared to dream of swapping her soul. You don't have any value left. Die, the projection shouted angrily. A giant invisible hand lifted Mu Qianqian up and flung her heavily onto an ice wall that suddenly rose from the ground. Bam! Mu Qianqian felt like her body was about to split open. The most terrifying thing was that when she turned around, she actually saw her own reflection on the ice wall. Such an ugly old face, with a lock of greasy hair hanging on a face full of frostbites. Was that her? Was it her? Mu Qianqian shouted as she covered her face. However, she didn't know that her voice had long been blocked inside the 5 walls and couldn't pass through at all. You must be frightened by your own appearance. Do you want to know what your body will look like in 10, 20, 30 years? This is the result of trying to touch my martial nephew's soul remembrance. The cold voice sounded like a machine. Mu Qianqian looked at that ice wall, and to her horror, she discovered that her face was starting to narrow and thin. The wrinkles on her face became denser, her eye sockets sunk in, and the veins on the back of her hands and legs were bulging. It was as if she had aged 10 years in just a few seconds. She was getting older and older. Her voice was like that of a dying old man, and her turbid eyes were filled with terror as she repeatedly shouted, "No, no." The skin and flesh on her body instantly vanished into nothingness, and her entire body turned into a set of withered bones that fell loosely to the ground. Chapter 966. Tisk, no one can escape the catalysis of the time curse. As the cold voice fell, the illusory projection removed all the barriers in this small alley. The withered bones on the ground had already turned into fine dregs and scattered with the wind. Black cat. She muttered softly. Just as she was about to move, she seemed to be restrained by something and her figure suddenly stopped. Damned heavenly Tao. You dare to suppress me? An invisible restraint stopped her on the spot for a moment. With a sudden collapse, she quickly broke free of the restraint and the illusory figure spread out into the distance. I'll find that whatever black cat. I'll go back after killing him. Boom. A sudden clap of thunder landed beside the illusory figure. Fuck. I've already endured your attacks on me so many times, but today I can't. Half an incense stick's time. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, several invisible chains swung onto the illusory figure's body, firmly restraining her on the spot. Must you oppose me? The woman's voice revealed a strong murderous intent. Come back quickly. You can't stay there. Your power of time will cause the spacetime of this lower star domain to become unstable. A crisp voice screeched in exasperation. They touched my martial niece. I beg you. Come back quickly. She's fine. She'll be fine. Who dares to touch her? Woo-woo. Damn it, stop talking nonsense. The illusory figure instantly disappeared into the air. The 2 beggars who had followed her poked their heads out of this small alley and looked at each other in dismay. Where's old Sly? I clearly saw him come in just now. Why isn't there anyone here? He's crazy. Forget it, don't bother with him. The Marquis of Jiayuan's estate. Mo Yen sat on the edge of the bed, his straight brows deeply knitted as he gazed at the slightly pale person lying on the bed. Old Imperial Physician Chow, how's the situation? The Crown Princess's pulse is stable and her body is in excellent condition. There's nothing wrong with her. Old Imperial Physician Chow also frowned and stood up. He had carefully checked the Crown Princess's pulse just now, and there was nothing wrong with her. However, the Crown Princess did not wake up. You guys can leave first. Mo Yen ordered indifferently. Yes. After everyone had left and closed the door, Mo Yen moved closer to the bed and reached out to hold Arbor's wrist. An endless stream of medicinal power flowed into Arbor's body. As the seconds ticked by, Mo Yen's forehead was covered in a layer of cold sweat. But his Jojo still did not wake up. Suddenly, as if he had sensed something, he abruptly turned his head, but before he could see clearly who was wrapped up in the black shadow, he had already seen it. A gust of wind from a finger instantly struck him and knocked him unconscious. I almost exposed myself. If the boy hadn't used up too much of his energy, she would have been exposed in front of him. He was a very strong child. The black shadow approached the bed and lifted Arbor with one hand. In an instant, several silver needles appeared and accurately fell on her body. The reason why her soul was so unstable was because of that girl from before. Did Junior Sister take care of that person? A moment later. Arbor's complexion slightly improved. Her eyelashes fluttered and she looked at the muslin canopy above her head in a daze. Then, as if she felt something, she turned her face to the side. The first thing she saw was Mo Yen, who was half lying in front of her bed. Her heart jumped. Mo. Child. A faint voice sounded by her ear. Chapter 967. A familiar voice, an aura that was still familiar even after 1,000 dreams. Arbor's heart shuddered, and she abruptly turned half of her small face to look at that projection. Master? Arbor struggled, but she felt that she couldn't move her limbs at all. Don't move. That projection floated unhurriedly in front of her and sighed lightly. Just now, someone tried to replace your soul. As she spoke, the newcomer struck out a hand seal, and Mu Qianqian's figure appeared in the air. Do you recognize her? Mu Qianqian. It's her. Arbor's heart was shaken, and her eyes widened slightly. I remember now. Just now, when I was in the carriage, I suddenly felt a shockwave attack my conscience. She was still a bit muddle-headed at the time, so she was caught off guard and injured by this shockwave. At that time, it felt like several large hammers were hammering her brain, and she couldn't help but stare blankly before fainting from the pain. Conscious. The newcomer pondered carefully before nodding in understanding. It is indeed so. Because the other party wanted to touch your soul, she was bound to infiltrate your conscious. However, she didn't know that the golden talisman jade tome in your conscious blocked the majority of the attack for you and even repelled her soul. Then where is Mu Qianqian? Her. She went for wool and came home shorn. After her soul was repelled, it landed in an unfamiliar beggar's body. She had only herself to blame. However, how could she allow such a vicious person to continue harming her beloved disciple to live in this world? Beggar. Arbor's head moved, but she still couldn't raise her limbs. So you're saying that Mu Qianqian became a beggar? This really was the biggest joke in the world. Your Aunt Master has already chased after her. I'm afraid that she has already become a pile of bones by now, the woman said coldly. Master, I know you are my master. But why don't I remember anything? Her heart was unbearably stifled. Xiao Mu really wanted to hit her own head to make it recall. The person's shadowy palm gently brushed her face, and he chuckled softly. Silly child, when your master and your martial uncle sent you back, we sealed most of your power, including your memories. Due to the passage of time and space, some of your memories will be lost. Don't worry, as you grow, you will remember everything. But why did you seal my power? The little guy blinked his eyes and tilted his little face to look at the shadow. Because you're too strong. If I hadn't sealed you back then, the heavenly Tao would never have allowed you to come back. When you leave, the laws will restrict you. Hee hee. Master, your joke is so funny. Qiuqiu said that she was very strong, and Master was also saying that she was very strong. Ha, why didn't she know that she was so strong? However, Master sensed that there really are quite a lot of little freaks that ignore the laws in your lower star domain. The shadow's finger moved slightly, and a moon-shaped jade pendant suddenly hung around Arbor's neck. Little treasure, your soul has been unstable since many years ago. Master told you last time that you absolutely cannot pull out the Fushi sword in your current situation. You must be obedient, understand? Master, I'm very obedient. Chapter 968. As soon as the jade pendant was hung around the little fellow's neck, she felt a chill attack her, so cold that she couldn't help but shiver. But very quickly, after that layer of chill peeled off, the moon-shaped jade pendant almost merged with her, instantly becoming warm and comfortable. Although the golden talisman jade tome helped you block it and the soul replacement failed, your soul body still suffered a slight shock. So it's normal for you to feel unwell and weak all over. Rest for a day or two and you'll be fine. This is the soul calming frost jade, the essence that your martial uncle extracted from the heart of the frost jade. It can stabilize your consciousness and help you cultivate and repair your divine sense. Arbor lowered her head to look at the soul-calming frost jade hanging around her neck. Master, can you tell me your name? She kept feeling that her master's and martial uncle's names were at the tip of her tongue, but she couldn't remember them. Master. Whoosh. There seemed to be the sound of iron chains swinging in the air. Arbor slightly widened her eyes. She couldn't see anything, but she could feel that the shadow's arm seemed to be bound by chains. Tian Dao, that's enough. Her precious disciple only wanted to know her name. She had to freaking be restricted. That's too much. Was her name so shameful? Come back quickly. If you don't come back soon, the space-time here will collapse. Aw. If Tian Dao could transform now, he would probably go crazy. If rolling on the ground begging for mercy was useful, Tian Dao would definitely be paralyzed on the ground and refuse to get up. Master. Master. Arbor struggled with her little hands and feet, trying to climb up from the bed. But when she moved, she felt like her head was being hit by a hammer. It was very painful. Don't move. Master is fine, I just have to go back. That person flicked a small green jade bottle into Arbor's arms. This is a core foundation pill, it can help you consolidate and stabilize your cultivation. Master sees that there's a powerful force in your body that hasn't completely merged, you. Tian Dao. I haven't finished speaking yet. Indeed, the earth essence in her body had yet to fully integrate. Arbor anxiously called out, Master, Master, can you tell me how we met? That person's faint laughter slightly rippled in the silent air. The first time I saw you, you were only 7 years old. You were surrounded by countless strong enemies, holding the Fushi sword in your hand. Yes, you were killing people. Tian Dao shrieked in a crisp voice, how could you reveal so much about the past to her? Come back quickly. Time and space will collapse, ah. A crack appeared in the void. Master, Master. The little fellow called out anxiously. The voice slowly faded away. Xiaobao, take good care of yourself. Your uncle Master and I will only be able to sense it when there are any unusual movements in your soul. Rest well and don't get hurt again. Master. Arbor struggled to move, and his little hand was suddenly grasped by a warm hand. Jojo. Mo Yen looked at her worriedly. Did you have a nightmare again? Arbor looked at him in a daze, and called out somewhat pitifully, Mo Yen, I can't move. This feeling of not being able to control her limbs and being unable to move at all was really terrible. This would make her think of those unbearable past for no reason. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.